The road to $10,000 runs through the Irish hills of Michigan. This is round number 13 of 18 on the NASCAR IRacing.com Series World Championship from the Michigan International Speedway. Tim Terry and Tony Stevens here to call all the action for you. And Tony, this is an interesting field. We have some new pro drivers making their debut. We have some drivers returning, and at the end of it, they're all chasing Ray Alfalla after 2 weeks ago. It seems to be Ray Alfalla's championship to lose here.
It really does, Tim, and I know that's bad news for a lot of people that are trailing him in the point standings, but as this season unfolds, you begin to see people's strengths, their weaknesses. You begin to see kind of how these championships take shape, and like any sort of stock car racing championship, a lot of it is all about being able to have the endurance to last the entire season. A couple of contenders just haven't had it. Among them, it wasn't even his pursuer. It was the guy beating him in the points. Tyler Hudson took last week off. Once you factor in the current drops, Tyler Hudson's still closest, but he's 25 points in arrears to Ray Alfalla, which means it's a pretty big gap with only a few races to go.
And that's when you factor in the drops into this. Keep in mind with this series, you do have one drop in this series, so you have to factor that in when you look at it. You have Brian Schoenberg, Nick Ottinger, Marcus Lindsay, when you factor in the drop. And let's add in Michael Conti as well. From Tyler Hudson all the way back to Mike Conti. With those drops, Tony, there's about 20 points in between there. Keep in mind, some drivers have a little bit of a higher drop than the others. But right now, this is a battle for essentially second. And if Ray Alfalla has issues, keep in mind we still have, 5 races left to go in this series. He could very well have an issue, and we could very well open up this championship and this $10,000 hunt again. But Ray's been in this situation. He had a rough start to this season, but now he's back in the driver's seat. He knows how to close off a season, and he's looking for his third championship. So Hudson, Schoenberg, Ottinger, Lindsay, Conti, they're all chasing him right now, but really they're all chasing the battle for second as well.
That they are, Tim, and that one's going to be a tight one as well. You mentioned all those drivers. All have had flashes of brilliance so far this season, and really all of them have visited victory lane with the exception of Tyler Hudson. So it's not like you're racing a bunch of back markers.
Yeah, they're also going to get some cash as well for the second and third place in this series. See if we can't get that picture of Ray Alfalla's new car up here. He told me it's Black Magic on the number 2 car here this week. A little bit of a reverse scheme, so we'll see what that will do with Ray Alfalla's Pro Geek Consulting Ford Fusion. We are going to send it over to the boys at Hot Laps to give us a couple of laps around this Michigan International Speedway and see what we're going to expect here this evening. Over 125 laps. Boys, she's a long race tonight.
Hey everyone, this is Ray Alfalla, and welcome to Hot Laps episode 13 at Michigan International Speedway. Here we begin our hot lap at over 200 miles an hour across the line. Approaching 215 into turn 1. You're going to want to keep it above this groove here into turn 1. Be careful for the bump right here, as it'll send your car off the track and ruin your lap. The reason you want to stay up above that groove is because there's less banking on the bottom, and you want to keep up as much speed as possible. Here we head into turn 3 at over 200 again. Once again, you want to stay above that seam right there in the second groove. There's more banking up here. You want to keep up momentum. Car's going to get a little loose off the turn here. Be careful, that wall comes up on you really quick. And that's a lap around Michigan as you head towards the bottom here to the line. This is a pretty wide open track. There's a lot of room to make passes, but ironically it's actually very line sensitive. As we talked about in the hot lap, you want to keep it right there next to that groove. And if you're under that groove, your tires will go into the part that has less banking, and you watch the car get loose probably, or it'll just plow up the track either way. And if you miss it up, the car won't turn and it'll hit more bumps because the high side of the track is more bumpy. So you want to keep it right there on that line. Pit road entry here can be tricky, not because of its tight quarters, but because it's easy to overdrive because you have so much room. As you come off turn 4, you want to be as aggressive as possible, but be aware of that wall right there that sticks out. Be on the lookout for 2 tires tonight, especially on green flag stops. If you don't have to fill the tank, people might take 2 tires, or if we run maybe 4 or 5 laps, people will pit and take 2 for track position. Whether it'll work or not, it's yet to be seen. Depends on people's setups. Some people might be too loose with 2 tires, so you might see some people take 2 and adjust on the setup, or some people will take 2 and lose the handle of the car on the restart, so look out for that. Last year the race here went caution free, so expect a lot of green flag racing. The race this year is 25 laps longer, so it will be 125 laps, 250 miles. I expect to see a lot of green flag racing, green flag pit stops, and it might be a fuel race if it goes green all the way, so be on the lookout for that as well. In 2 weeks, we head off to the high banks of Atlanta Motor Speedway. Enjoy the race tonight.
So as those guys said, going to be an interesting race here at Michigan, and a long one at that, 125 laps to run. 25 laps longer, actually, than the last season that we ran here at Michigan. And the one thing that I'm seeing, Tony, you look down the list, I think I counted earlier, at least 10 pro drivers in this race, half of those making their first start here this evening, including Brandon Hawk in the 53, going to start in position number 3 this evening. How about Simon Crochard for our European viewers? No stranger to a Drivers' World Championship. He was on the iRacing Grand Prix World Championship Series a few seasons ago. He's going to start in 5th this evening. You got guys like, let's look down the list, Ashley Miller, Sasha Wessler, Lee Herron, Kevin Burris, Tom Moustakas. Keep going down the list. You got Brandon Bowie, who's made a couple of starts this season, Tyler Laughlin, also in this series. Kenny Humpy, going to start scratch on this field this evening in 41st. You've got a lot of drivers making their first start, or a lot of drivers trying to make a splash in this series to get a little bit of momentum maybe into the NASCAR iRacing.com Pro Series at the end of this season. It could spell trouble for some of these drivers in the field, maybe going for points.
Yeah, absolutely, Tim. And it's not even so much that as it is these guys now know what they have to compete against maybe even next year. So if you're down in the standings a little bit, but just kind of surviving, if you will, while some of these guys have had some lackluster seasons, some lackluster races, these are the guys you just mentioned, Tim, that you might have to compete with next season. They're going to be coming into this series, and they're no slouches either. I mean, how many names did you roll off there that are in the top 10, top 15 for that matter, of this particular qualifying session? That's a lot of good competition. And like you said, it may play a factor in the race, which ultimately could play a factor in the point battle. We'll find out as this 250-mile contest unfolds. And really, Tim, this is one of the longest races of the season for us here at Michigan. Fun little fact, did you know they once tried staging a 600-mile race here at Michigan? It just barely made it past halfway due to rain and darkness, but they tried it once.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of these drivers try to go that extra distance here this evening. It's not going to be a 600-mile race, but a lot of these drivers are going to push through as well. We talked about the standings earlier. We'll throw them back up on the screen for you here. And you see Ray Alfala on top of the standings. These are the standings minus the drop. When you factor in the drop, you've got a cluster around position number 2 with Tyler Hudson, Brian Schoenberg, Nick Ottinger, Marcus Lindsay, Michael Conti going for that second place position. And then you keep looking down the standings. You got guys like Peter Bennett, Brandon Cattell, 2 of the drivers in their first season in this series, Matt Busa in 10th, and Tom Lewandowski, one of the veterans of this NASCAR iRacing.com Series World Championship, sitting there as well. And when we look at standings as well, Tony, you really have to look at that top 20 bubble, because that's what's going to get you into this series next year. Right now, when you do not factor in the drop, it's Jason Karlavich at 251, and then you look back at Danny Hansen, Steve Sheehan. We haven't seen Steve in a few weeks, so let's kind of discount him. Josh Lawton won earlier this season at Talladega. Andrew Fayash III, Paul Kashiba complete your top 25. And Fayash is another one of those drivers that always seems to be around or close to that bubble, so he's going to try to put that 157 back up into the top 20 without having to go through the Pro Series, which he has the last 2 years. So, with that out of the way, we've got some of the storylines out of the way. Now let's go down our starting grid for this evening's race, because there's a lot of drivers that are starting deep in this field that are up there in that points picture. One driver that's trying to make his way back up there and trying to put himself back into contention. He's 12th in points. He starts first this evening. It's the number 29 at Kevin King, putting in a time of 37.493. Into the outside, number 24 of Carson McClelland.
Brandon Hawk, that you talked about just a little bit ago, Tim, he is rolling off tonight in third, and Jared Crawford in the 83 will roll on the outside of row number 2.
Driver that we've really only seen part-time this season. Great to see Jared Crawford back in that 83. Simon Croshark going to start in position number 5 in the 48 to the outside. It's two-time Ray Alfala in the 2, looking for his 3rd championship this season, rolling off in 6th.
Joey Brown starts 7th, and Michael Johnson in the 39 is 8th.
Marcus Lindsay will start in position number 9, and completing your top 10, it's Brandon Schmidt in the 3.
Danny Hansen rolls his number 20 machine the inside of row number 6, and it's Nick Ottinger, the Ream machine. He'll be starting 12th.
It's 2 drivers making their first start in this series. Ashley Miller going to start in position number 13 to the outside. It's 31 of Sasha Wessler.
Lee Heron starts 15th, and Brad Davies, the 11 machine, right alongside.
2 more Pro Series drivers. It's Kevin Burris in the 45, starting in 17 to the outside, number 10 of Tom Mustakas.
Alex Warren's number 82 is 19th, and Brandon Cattell, car number 80, starts 20th.
Brian Schoenberg starts in position number 21. All the J-Show cars running special paint schemes. They're running the back-to-school paint schemes, 55 being one of them. And to the outside, it's going to be 34. Matt Busa starting 22nd.
Byron Daly in his Bandit Chipper's car. He'll roll 23rd, and Adam Gilliland 24th.
John Adams will roll from position number 25 to the outside, 69, Peter Bennett.
Brandon Bowie, 27th. Rob Ackley, the 22, is 28th.
Casey Malone in 29th. We mentioned him in the top 10 in points at this point in the season. At number 16 of Thomas Lewandowski in 30th.
Jake Sturgis, he'll be 31st on the grid. And then Chad Coleman, and his number 28 machine, qualified 32nd quickest.
2 more Pro Series drivers, Tyler Laughlin on the inside. And welcome back to the series, Stephen Gilbert, going to start in position number 34.
A couple of veterans behind them, Brian Blackford in the 33 and Andrew Flyash the 3rd in that 157.
The Viper, Landon Harrison, starts in position 37 to the outside. It is Pat Baldwin in the 52.
Current second place man in points, Tyler Hudson, 39th, Michael Conti, 40th, and Kenny Humpy going to be shotgun on the field, Tim. 41 cars strong, ready to take the green for 250 miles here at the Michigan International Speedway.
And who will come out on top? I'm sure we're going to find out very, very quickly. It's going to be Kevin King, and the number 29 going to lead us to green very quick throughout the week, asking the drivers who was going to be ones to watch. You look at that inside line of King and Hawk, and I say Brandon Hawk, he might surprise us here this evening, folks. Watch that 53 in his first start. Pace car in, and Kevin King is on the hammer. Green flag flies. We're underway for the first of 125 laps in round number 13 of the Nascar iRacing.com Series World Championship. And look at the move by Alfala to the inside already of Jarrett Crawford. He started 6th. He's going to be 4th before turn 1.
Alfala's going after it, to say the least, Tim, from a driver that really will admit that maybe Michigan isn't his best racetrack. Well, I guess the easiest way to take on a challenge is facing it man to man and face on, grabbing it by the horns and trying to wrestle it into submission. That's exactly what Ray Alfala is doing right now, all the way up to 4th before the completion of lap number 1.
Me and Chuck Johnson talked about it a little bit earlier. Ray's told me, this is not my racetrack. I don't like this racetrack. If there's one racetrack left in the final few of this season, it's definitely this one I do not want to run, as we have a couple of 3 wide battles, I believe, back here. Or it was 3 wide, around the 11 of Brad Davies, the 55 of Schoenberg, 93 of Byron Daly back here as well. Trying to get through the Hornets Nest. We got one car way down on the apron. That's Brandon Schmidt in the 3. He's going to come back out on the racetrack. And it looks like we are going to stay green. 3 wide behind them. The 10, 93, and 84. Try to get it back to 2 wide. It's manageable. Oh, Davies gets into somebody, and he's in the fence. It's one of the unique size cars. And we're going to have a big one off corner number 4, Peter Bennett. And the 54 around. Caution flag will fly. And Tony, I didn't catch a number on that one, but Davies got into somebody to send him in the fence.
Yeah, it was into the number 31 machine. That's the car that was the one that ended up in the fence, Sasha Wessler. Then the number 69 of Peter Bennett caught a piece of it. Pretty much all in the aftermath of everybody checking up for Wessler. Bennett caught a piece of it, and the 54 of Brandon Bowie went around. I think pretty much it was minor, if any, contact for Bowie and Bennett, although Wessler did catch a pretty good piece of the wall. Brian Blackford had to take evasive action down pit lane as well, so about 3 or 4 cars affected of that affected by that incident in turn number 4.
And you see the replay rolling of that wreck. It puts us underneath our first caution flag of the evening on lap number 3 of 125. And we see a lot of green flag racing in these fields, Tony, but with the way these guys are running and the way the draft is so tight, I talked to a lot of these guys beforehand, and they said you definitely want to be in the draft. You don't want to lose the draft because, well, you could end up shooting yourself in the foot, per se, if you lose the draft and end up getting a lap down or 2. So you're going to have to watch this here. We see that 2 and 3 wide racing. It's a product of this racing, and sometimes that can lead to a few wrecks and a few cautions.
It really can, especially on these cold tires, Tim. And you look at somebody like Brad Davies. He's known for being a clean driver. Just drove into turn 3 and lost the nose. That's all there was to it. You could watch the wheels in the replay. He just had him cranked left until finally it grabbed. But by that point, he was already sliding up the racetrack. And the 31 didn't really give him a whole lot of room either, for that matter. So a little bit of a racing deal over there in turn number 4. But, you know, early on when you're bunched up like that, that's when the chaos can happen. The good news is, if you're some of these drivers that are a little bit further back in the field, like say an Adam Gilliland or a Thomas Lewandowski or a Matt Busa, somebody like that, this is a great opportunity for you to come down pit road like we just saw pretty much that entire second half of the field do, and try to maybe get just a little bit off sequence. Not a whole lot, but you know what? It's not going to hurt to come in, bolt 4 new tires on, fill up the fuel tank, and have that little bit extra to go in case the cautions happen to fall your way.
And we talked about some of those drivers there that did come down pit road. I see the 89 of Landon Harrison came down pit road, and he, along with the 93 of Byron Daly, are running some of our, well, they're not technically in-car cameras, but they are in the cockpit camera, I guess, the comfort of their own home. We'll get to see Byron and Landon in action here this evening as well. So we'll peek in on their webcams throughout the evening. Byron right now running the Bandit Chippers number 93 in position number 22, and Landon Harrison in the number 89 running the Hickenjicks number 89 back in position number 37 right now as he came down pit road on that caution, and it appears that these guys are getting ready to double up and go back to green flag racing next time by. So quick caution there. Kevin King will line up alongside the 53 of Brandon Hawk. I said it before we went green, Tony. A lot of these drivers, Brandon Hawk is one of those, I don't want to say super speedway specialists, he's good everywhere we go, but I think the 53 has something to hold for us here this evening. We saw Karlavich win last season as a pro. Steve Sheehan's won as a pro before. I believe Kevin King may have done so as well. To come up to this series as a pro driver and win against these regular drivers, Brandon Hawk might be the best bet out of the dozen or so that are here tonight to win this thing.
Very well could be. I mean, you talked about it, Tim. He's known for these high-speed, I don't want to say high downforce, but high-speed type racetracks where you just go in and pretty much hold it down to the metal. And that's all you do with the big right foot pedal is just push it as far as it can go through that firewall. And Hawk is in a good spot right now to try to do that here on this restart, as he will be lined up on the front row alongside Kevin King. But make no mistake, Tim, even though he might be known for super speedways, if you will, this is not your typical quote-unquote super speedway. I mean, yes, it's a super speedway by definition. It's more than a mile long, but you do still have to crack the throttle. Handling does come into play, but you're not out of the throttle a whole lot here. You're hammered down for at least, 80 to 90% of the lap. Pace
car is in. Kevin King is going. Green flag flies, and a little bit of a more even start that time. Now the 24, Carson McClellan, going to look on the inside of Brandon Hawk for position number 2. Look at Ray Alfala. He might be the wild card in this battle for the lead. as King will take it into corner number 1, 24. We'll try to follow him through for position number 2, the 53, trying to hold on to third and trying to get second off corner number 2 as they will drag race down the back straightaway on lap number 6 of 125. The battle is for second with McClellan on the inside and Brandon Hawk on the outside.
McClellan looking really, really racy here in the early going. Hawk caught up top, and look behind Hawk, who's caught up there with him. The number 2 of Ray Alfala, and again, we talked about it, Tim. He does not necessarily like this racetrack, but this is how he runs when he hates the place. I don't want to see it when he likes it.
Spoke to say before that caution flag, the March on Michigan race back here about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago here on PSR TV, the Inside Sim Racing deal that they had. He was in a truck. Ray Alfala went into corner number 1 and forgot the safer barrier was there and got that safer barrier in that corner. And one of the reasons why Ray Alfala does not like this racetrack, he's got Joey Brown underneath him now, and here comes the one of Marcus Lindsay, and he's stuck on that outside line. Simon Crochard as well is coming through. You look back from the 12 of Joey Brown, the Barley Electrical. Number 12, the 2 and the 1, side by side for position number 5 going into corner number 1.
And Alfala still cannot get down there on the bottom, Tim. I don't know if that's maybe by choice, so to speak, from Ray Alfala. Maybe not to try to have any sort of risk by pinching that car down early. But I don't think it is. I think he's losing enough time right now. Oh, big trouble behind him. Tyler Hudson's in it. Matt Busa is in it. 4 or 5 cars caught a piece of it. Looks like Adam Gilliland might have caught a piece of that one as well. As they came off turn number 2, Tim, it was just a bunch of chaos. It started with a 3 wide, it looked like, as they just got pinched then. Right in the middle, Jake Sturgis was the car I saw slide. It looked like Tyler Hudson. I think he caught a piece of it as well. Looks like the number 58 also caught a piece of it, Kenny Humpy. Really what looked to be about 4 or 5 cars ended up involving about 7 or 8.
Yeah, looking at the incident, you see the 34 and 41 getting into it. That's Jake Sturgis and Matt Busa. Chad Coleman, Tyler Hudson among the innocent victims. The 58 of Humpy, the 52 of Pat Baldwin also get a piece of this as well. Adam Gilliland goes for a spin. I'm not sure who he got. Looks like he went to the inside, tried to go to the outside, and Andrew Fayash III was there. So it's about an 8-car incident. Some of these drivers getting a little bit more damage than the others, but a lot of some of the innocent spins there, Tony. But we talked with this iRacing service. If you're new to the service, if you hit that left rear corner, the left front corner, whatever corner you hit, the suspensions on these race cars can be damaged. And with some of the hits like that, in the case of Adam Gilliland, he gets into Fayash, he goes for a spin, but he hit on that right front corner. There could be some suspension parts on that race car that are now damaged, as we got some pit stops. The J-Show guys are coming in. Danny Hansen, the first to peel off to pit road in the Focus Eyewear number 20. He is going to bring Brian Schoenberg along with him and a couple of drivers behind him. Brad Davies also coming down. Over a dozen drivers on pit road right now.
A bunch of drivers trying to maybe short pit a little bit, Tim, to take advantage of these early caution flags. The only downside is you end up back there in the hornet's nest like we just saw, and as you watch these pit stops and see exactly what's going to occur from some of those drivers like Schoenberg and company, I want to take a minute and just kind of review that accident. You looked at, here's what happened, Tim. You look at it, Matt Busa just lost the nose out of turn number 4 and smacked the fence, and he just broke his momentum enough that the only thing that happened there, Tim, was he got pile driven from behind by Sturgis. Not even that much, but just a little bit. And what ended up, really a 1-2 car incident took out Busa, Chad Coleman, Sturgis, Hudson, Humpy, Patrick Baldwin caught a piece of it. And then even further back, the guys that were trying to react to the accident, Adam Gilliland caught a piece of it. Andrew Fayash III got a little bit of damage in the process as well. So it got really hairy really quickly there for a lot of guys just because one driver missed his mark in turn number 2 and happened to scrape the wall and break his momentum.
We saw a lot of drivers come down into pit road. Most of those stops, I believe, were 4 tires. I did see Brian Blackford in the Snow Cone Productions Ford Fusion ending up taking fuel only on his stop. So a little bit of strategy played out there as he will come out and beat a lot of these drivers off pit road. Ray Alfala and the 2 on the apron here going through the tri-oval as we will come by and complete the 10th circuit of this race. It's Kevin King, Carson McClellan, Brandon Hawk, your top 3. seems like that second and third place position on those restarts is swapped because the inside driver will pick up that position. Joey Brown, Ray Alfala, your top 5. Lindsay, Crochart, Crawford, Johnson, and Ottinger, your top 10. Looks like Ashley Miller will take that 11th place spot.
Kevin Burris going to slot into 12th right now. Schmidt, Adams, Daly, and so on down the line right now, Tim. And you talked about Ray Alfala down the apron. Michael Johnson down there as well. Nick Ottinger. We're on lap number 11, Tim. And would you believe, well, I can believe it, but would you believe that these guys are already in fuel-saving mode trying to milk every virtual drop of gasoline out of these machines to make it on what one could only assume would be a 2-stop strategy?
I can believe it. We mentioned earlier that these guys have it in them that they can go a lot of green flag laps consecutively without having that caution flag. So it doesn't surprise me that these guys could possibly be thinking this fuel strategy early in this race. We've seen guys before, the likes of Ray Alfala and the 41 car, Jake Sturgis, really comes to mind when you talk about fuel strategy in one of these races. These guys that have been in this series for long enough, that have run these long races, they know how to conserve. The NASCAR iRacing series, which is a part of the iRacing service. You can get your iRacing account, grab the Class A car, and come out and race the NASCAR iRacing series. I believe it's every Thursday night, Saturday morning, and Sunday night. And you can race these longer races like these NASCAR iRacing.com Series World Championship drivers do. I believe, though, this race a little bit longer than the NIS race at Michigan. Class A was here. They did 80 laps. So those races that are on the service can help you a little bit and play a little bit of that fuel strategy there. But it's going to help you a little bit, Tony, but I don't know how much it's going to help you with 125 laps when you tack on the extra 45 or the extra 25 laps, whatever the case may be.
I think you could do it, though, Tim. It might be pushing it a little bit, but I think if you play your cards right, you can do it on 2 stops here, but it takes a whole lot of luck. But nonetheless, to stretch it is not going to hurt you because it just gives you that much more to work with towards the end of the race. And you talk about trying to come out and get that A-Class car, Tim, this brand new Gen 6 SS and Ford Fusion. Well, our friends on Mac can do it now as well. For so long, one of the biggest knocks on this sim has been, I don't have a Windows-based machine. I need a Windows-based machine to run it. I don't like Windows, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we understand. Well, the guys at iRacing put their nose to the grindstone, and now, Tim, you're out of excuses if you're a Mac user. The only excuse you can use now is I do not have electricity in my home, which I guess is a few people in you know, I guess are hitting within the sound of our voice. But if you're within the sound of our voice, somebody has power. But you can now iRace on a Mac, which is pretty doggone cool, and all the details are at iRacing.com. So you're running out of excuses as to why you cannot be on the virtual racetrack.
And who knows, if you get some work into your race car, put some effort into it, you could be racing with these NASCAR iRacing.com Series World Championship drivers and racing for $10,000 like these drivers are in the championship. Pace car is in, and the 29 at Kevin King in control again, brings him down a little slower. Green flag flies. It's going to stack up some guys about mid-pack as they were anticipating, I think, King to go a little bit quicker than he did. Battle is going to be for second once again. Brandon Hawk on the inside now. Carson McClellan and Marcus Lindsay, I think, thought about making it 3 wide going down to the 1.
I think they thought about it. Tim, look at Joey Brown. He just turned left right across the nose of Marcus Lindsay and dove underneath Carson McClellan, and now he's going to try to go for that second spot in turn number 3. He's going to be right there inside of Brandon Hawk. But look at Joey Brown trying to make it happen on the bottom of the racetrack out of turn number 4. It is neck and neck down to the stripe to complete lap number 13.
Blackford makes a save. He's going to drop a bunch of positions. The 83 of Jarrett Crawford up here, though, on the 24. Carson McClellan looking underneath the number 1 of Marcus Lindsay for a spot. It's 2 wide in front of them, the 12 and 53 going side by side. You mentioned it, Tony, on that restart. That 12 made that move, and it looks like the move is going to stick to position number 2. He moves into second. Marcus Lindsay going to move into third, and the 53 is stuck on the outside. Now the 1 goes to the inside of the 12, pitches it in deep, and the 1 of Marcus Lindsay is going to come out, I believe, with position number 2. It's going to be the 12 now back to third, and Brandon Hawk continues to slide here. 24 to the inside now. The 83 of Jarrett Crawford and the JDR Graphics 83. Looking at it as well, the 2 of Ray Alfala to the outside.
Good battle here up front, Tim. A lot of other battles back through the field where they're 2 and 3 wide. Just shows you how competitive this Gen 6 car can be, even in a virtual setting, as you ride on board with Ray Alfala and that number 2 machine. Caution on the speedway. Tyler Hudson has issues, and this has not been a good night for Tyler Hudson. The good news for him, all by himself, Jake Sturgis about a car length behind. He might have taken the air off the spoiler, but that 01 machine already torn up. So it looks like maybe some of that damage didn't quite get fixed the way he expected, and maybe some sort of aero issue Tyler Hudson's going to be fighting for the rest of the night.
That's a tough break for the 01 of Tyler Hudson. And we mentioned it earlier in the season. So consistent. Point leader in the series. And then starts having those misfortunes. Everybody's had at least 1 or 2 bad races here, Tony, this season. We mentioned Ray Alfala starting off the season a little bit rocky. Tyler Hudson has just been consistent all season. Minus 1 or 2 blemishes on his record. And now he sits in that battle for position number 2 instead of being in position number 1. But you look at it, Tyler Hudson is one of those drivers that we don't usually talk about a whole lot at the start of the race. And then all of a sudden, 10 laps to go, 20 laps to go, he's in the fray for a top 10 position. So if Tyler Hudson can come down, get that repaired. I know Michigan is a big racetrack for the aerodynamics on the car. We saw it there as he went around. We might see Tyler Hudson back up here, but they got to come down and make the time to do it right. 29 of Kevin King, the 1 of Marcus Lindsay. It looks like it's going to be pit stops for a lot of these drivers. Ray Alfala stays out, and the J-Show drivers, along with the rest of the drivers that came in under that last caution, are going to gain some track position here.
Yeah, absolutely, Tim, and this is what we talked about, trying to shuffle up pit strategy a little bit. And if we get some of these longer green flag runs, this is where it can pay off or completely bite you in the bum. We'll find out how it plays out as we continue through the race. Still about 110, a little less than 110 laps to go. Kevin King, 2 tires on the right side of his machine, and now 4. McClellan going to get down and away with 2. Looks like 4 tires for everyone else. King, Lindsay, Brown, Hawk going to be coming out with 4 brand new skins on his machine. So now, Tim, pit strategy and track position are the name of the game here in Michigan.
Yeah, we see that little jumble now. Ray Alfala is the only driver to stay out on the racetrack here throughout everything. Then you got the guys that came in under that last caution flag, or most of them that came in under that last caution flag, including Danny Hansen, Michael Conti, Brian Schoenberg, the 3 J-Show teammates, running in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th right now. Brad Davies in 5th, Peter Bennett, Tyler Laughlin, Lee Herron, Thomas Lewandowski, Brandon Cattell, Adam Gilliland throughout your top 10. Then you got guys like Matt Busa, Sasha Wessler, and then Carson McClellan, Kevin King, and the rest of the field. So about a dozen or so stayed out on the racetrack that came down on the last caution flag, and then you have everybody else. So going to be interesting to see. We saw Sasha Wessler hit the wall a little bit earlier, so we'll see if they got the damage repaired to that race car. And then everybody else in front of them, we'll see if they can stack up with everybody else. Ray Alfala, though, in the number 2, he's on a different strategy than the other 40 cars in this field.
And I don't know if it's going to pay off for him, Tim. You're deep enough into this run that it's not going to hurt you to come in and get some sort of service. Now, Ray Alfala's got the worst gas mileage of anybody here as far as what's left in the tank. His strategy is going to depend on another caution within the next 20 laps or so for him to be able to maintain sequence with everybody else. Otherwise, he is going to be off sequence, and that's not necessarily a bad thing if it all works out the way you plan. But it's a really, really big risk if you're Ray Alfala, and this might be one of those deals, Tim. We've talked about it already, 6-10 times, how he doesn't like this racetrack. This might be self-inflicted more so than just an issue with the racetrack and the setup.
Yeah, you're right. If he came down pit road, had a decent pit stop, he's sitting 13th, 14th right now, and keep in mind, he could put himself in trouble in 13th, 14th, like Kevin King, Carson McClellan, Marcus Lindsay. Those drivers have fast race cars right now. And if it all plays out and they get a little bit of a green flag run, they don't get into trouble, it's going to work out for them, I think. But you're Ray Alfala, you're out in front right now, you have track position, and then that other piece comes into play. If this race does go green, then you're going to have a little bit of a different pit strategy. Sasha Wessler, mentioned him a little bit earlier, 6 laps down now, 5 laps down, he gets the free pass. He's in 41st. Everybody else in the racetrack remains on the lead lap in this race. Tyler Hudson still sits on pit road, and he may be in danger of falling 1 lap down in this field, which might not be too bad for him, as he's got a little bit of damage to that race car, Tony. He would be the only driver that is 1 lap down as he now pulls away from pit road, so he's going to maintain that lead lap position as he will pull out of pit road. Ray Alfala is your leader. I believe we do get the 1 to go maybe this time by, and we'll see the 25 and 55 lineup beside him. And you look at those cars, Tony, it's back to school. It's paint schemes on those race cars to display, I guess, a school bus, what we call it. Michael Conti's still young. He goes to school.
Bus racing?
Well, I don't know. You guys have done that on your...
It's a school bus, slobber not... Oh, wait.
You're at the wrong track.
Sorry. You had me excited there, Tim.
Well, I don't know. That might be something for iRacing to look at next. We do have figure 8 racing already on the service.
Yes, that's it. I am making this call now in the middle of the iRacing World Championship Series. The iRacing needs to have school bus slobber knocker racing at a quarter mile at Charlotte. It shall be done because we demand it. Maybe. We hope.
We?
Well, I hope. I'm going to go back to my corner now. Is that okay?
Well, you're going to get to see the school buses of Danny Hansen, Michael Conti, and Brian Schoenberg go green here behind Ray Alfala. You don't believe it's a school bus. Look at the back quarter, the number 5 of Mike Conti. Brad Davies completes your top 5 here with Peter Bennett, Tyler Laughlin, Lee Herron. It's Tom Lewandowski and Brian Cattell completing your top 10. And we'll see how this plays out for the number 2, Progi Consulting Ford of Ray Alfala. Pace car going to make that hard left-hand turn down onto pit road this time by. We will have 20 laps completed, or 19 laps completed. Come across the stripe. We'll begin lap number 20. This time by for the NASCAR iRacing.com Series World Championship, round number 13 at the Michigan International Speedway. Here we go. 2 car of Alfala is gone. A green flag flies. It's the battle for second between Conti, Schoenberg, and Danny Hansen as they will go down into corner number 1, this time by the 5 to the inside of the 20.
And where in the world, oh yeah, pit strategy is where Danny Hansen came from, as well as a lot of these other guys up towards the front of the field. And again, it's going to be very interesting to see, Tim, as Ray Alfala got the jump on the restart, exactly how these old tires play out compared to newer tires and versus track position. So far, Ray has the advantage, but Hansen, Connie, and company, they are trying to stalk him the best they can, but I got a feeling Ray is up on the wheel right now like he has not been all evening long.
And you look at Danny Hansen in that number 20 car, he's being chased by his 2 teammates. Danny Hansen is one of those drivers that has had some great runs this season, but hasn't been able to catch a break. 3 wide around the 12, 34, and 29, about mid-pack down the back straightaway. Matt Busa on the outside. You got Kevin King down there. Now the 53 and 05 are down to the inside. Nick Ottinger trying to get 2 for 1 here as he's going to pick up 2 spots on that inside group. The 83 of Jarrett Crawford going to follow him through as well. And don't look now. Here comes Ashley Miller in the 7 to the inside. He's going to be chased by Simon Crosharp and Michael J. Johnson in the 39 to the inside as well.
This is a huge gaggle back towards the middle section of the field. Adam Gillen right there, Marcus Lindsay, Kevin King, one of your early leaders up there, Joey Brown, McClellan and company. These are the cars that we know are fast, Tim. We know they've got speed because they qualified up front. They ran up front early, but now they're back in traffic. Their cars are handling differently. They're around slower cars. They're not quite where they need to be as far as being able to use the entire racetrack, and it presents a little bit of a challenge whenever you have that, Tim, because it's very, very easy to overdrive the corner or miss your mark and have that little bitty mistake that can send your race to the back of the tow truck.
Working lap number 23 down the back straightaway. Ray Alfala continues to lead top 5 or so single file. You see the 80 of Brandon Cattell on your screen. That's the battle for position number 12 or so. 3 wide behind them. 81 of Adam Gilliland stuck up to the outside. 53 and 83 get it back to double file. 83 of Jarrett Crawford. Not going to make this thing go easy as the 83 to the inside. Oh, contact, and John Adams is into the fence on the front straightaway. This will bring out a caution. A huge impact for John Adams.
John Adams got turned right front into the wall, head on. And again, another one of them deals, he was just stuck in between a couple of cars. It looks like it was the 3 of Brandon Schmidt he was behind, and the number 10 machine of Thomas Stockus that was right behind him. And John Adams kind of caught in a bad spot there. Another one of those deals where Schmidt just ended up breaking his momentum slightly. That's all it took. But Adams hit the wall at such an angle that it just absolutely catapulted him, Tim, onto his roof and into the infield to where his day is pretty much done.
Yeah, he's still sitting there waiting for somebody to get to the race car, I guess, as night over for the 84, John Adams, by the looks of it. And I say night over. He might be able to get the tow truck back to pit road and maybe get that thing fixed. We talked about points. John Adams not involved in the points hunt right now, Tony. Missed a few races at the start of the season, but he might get out there and try to gain a few positions if anybody else decides to fall out of the race. Sasha Wessler still on the racetrack, so if John decides to retire, he will be the first retiree of the evening, and he will finish in position number 41, given that Sasha can make the next 4 laps or so and pass him under the caution flag or the green flag. We'll see if the 2 of Ray Alfala decides to come down pit road, and I would believe, Tony, if he comes down, it might be the only driver to do so.
Yeah, and again, I don't know why he's backed himself into this corner that he has, but he's made that decision. Now, look at him in turns 3 and 4. It appears that Alfala is going to come down pit road, along with probably Danny Hansen, Michael Connie, and Brian Schoenberg. They'll get the pit in, and Hansen's going to commit to going down pit road. Conti is going to stay on the route. No, Hansen going to fake himself out. So everybody going to stay out, and I don't know if I like this strategy if I'm Ray Alfala.
About half of the drivers come down pit road here. Peter Bennett included. Carson McClellan, the one of Marcus Lindsay. Joey Brown stays on the racetrack. Brian Cattell is down. Lee Heron down as well. So there's about 8 or 9 cars that come down pit road under this caution flag. The closest one to the front's around position number 9 or so. We're going to step away for just a few moments' time. Go refreshing your drinks. Grab some popcorn. Going to be a exciting last 100 laps of this race. 100 to go at Michigan. Don't go away.
It's time for those most famous words in motorsports. Drivers, start your engines!
Michael Conti comes up at a corner number 4 in the checkered flag. He wins his first NASCAR IRacing. Hey, welcome back to Michigan, round number 13 of the NASCAR iRacing.com Series World Championship. Tim Terry and Tony Stevens here to call all the action for you, and looks like Sasha Wessler going to get the free pass once again, so that'll put the 31 car 4 laps down. If you're just joining us, John Adams is out because of this latest caution flag. We'll catch up with John on the next caution flag that we have, if we do have a caution flag here soon. Pat Baldwin is also out of the race. He is 2 laps behind the pace, and he has retired for the evening. So 2 retirees after that last caution flag, Tony. Ray Alfala continues to lead this thing, and as we mentioned before, if you're just joining us, he's on a little bit of a different pit strategy.
A little bit of a different pit strategy is an understatement. If the flip side of this is, if everything works out for Ray Alfala, Tim, he might, well, at this rate, with these this amount of cautions, he will be able to do this on 2 stops. But his window is much narrower than everybody else around him. Again, it's all going to depend on the yellow flags, and I think Ray Alfala right now is praying that we have some yellow fever, at least until he gets his first pit stop out of the way, and everybody can get back on a very similar sequence.
So we have the 2 of Ray Alfala leading, then we have the J-Show teammates of Danny Hansen, Michael Conti, Brian Schoenberg. You can really throw Brad Davies underneath there as well with the satellite operation between there, and actually Ray Alfala as well working with that J-Show team. So really you look at it, your top 5 really underneath the same blanket or same satellite blanket for race teams. You got Tyler Laughlin in position number 6, one of the pro drivers. Tom Lewandowski, Kevin King, Joey Brown, Nick Ottinger now your top 10, with a few select drivers coming down into pit road. I say few select drivers, about half the field actually when you look at it, because Peter Bennett's going to restart in position number 17 there on back. So it looks like about half the field or so comes down pit road under this caution flag. We will complete this one here, and we will get ready to go back to green flag racing on lap number 28 of 125. Glad you could be with us here on PSR TV, iRacing Live, and the Motor Racing Network, as the pace car will duck on to pit road, and Ray Alfala will get ready to see the green flag. Pace car going to leave right here somewhere. There he goes. The 2 is going to put the hammer down here a little bit slower. Now he's on the throttle. Green flag flies, and Danny Hansen looks like he is going to get away with position number 2, but Michael Conti going to try to get to the inside. Brian Schoenberg way to the inside, trying to cross over his teammate as the 5 looks underneath the 20. Top 5 or so single file, then it's a gaggle behind them.
A gaggle and a half, I think, Tim. This Gen 6 car is so great as far as downforce, but there's one problem. It creates a lot of downforce by punching a big hole in the air. So that kind of sucks everybody together, and especially when you have a restart like we do here at Michigan, it's a really good opportunity to pass other race cars when you get that momentum from the draft of those cars in front of you. And they've absolutely done a great job mimicking that here with the iRacing model, to where it's still fun, you're able to get in tow, and it makes for some really, really, really good racing. And when you really think about it, Tim, this is probably about as accurate as you can have it. It's no different than, remember the old IROC cars here? They were very similar to these Gen 6 cars as far as the amount of downforce they created, and they had races like this all the time, but it was only with 10 or 12 cars. Equal engines, equal setups, the only thing different was the drivers. Here you've got equal tires, equal engines, setups are different, and the drivers are different, but they're still close enough. Trouble behind them, trouble coming out of turn number 4. Looks like the 58 machine of Kenny Humpy has caught a piece of it, and Ashley Miller is involved in it as well.
Caution flag will fly, and you mentioned these 2 pro drivers. It looks like the 58 just bobbles on the inside, and the 7 is going to get a huge piece of it as well. Casey Malone barely misses it. Stephen Gilbert going to get a little piece as well. I mentioned Gilbert back in the series. Former NASCAR iRacing.com Series World Championship driver, fell out of the series and had to get back in through the Pro Series. He'll see what he can do in this Pro Series upcoming. But Kenny Humpy and Ashley Miller bringing out that caution flag. And the one thing I want to mention, Tony, is as we get going in this race, these drivers do have an incident system in this series where if you cause an incident, it's reviewed by a panel, and there's 4 judges. You could get 4 incident points per wreck. If something happens that it's within a certain amount of laps after a restart, that could be doubled. We see a lot of these wrecks after restarts. We could see a lot of double point wrecks. And then when you look at it as well, if you're a Pro Series driver and you're coming up here causing havoc, i.e. those 2 drivers that were just involved in that caution, you're scrutinized a little bit more. Dylan Duval, I believe, was suspended 2 or 3 races because of him being involved in a few issues. And then he's a pro driver, looks a little bit different, and he's out of the series for a couple races. So you look at it, if those drivers keep doing what they're doing, maybe down the road, if it's bad enough, they could look at their pro license, possibly being suspended for the Pro Series. It all depends how the officials look at each of these wrecks, but you look at that wreck there, it happens, 2-3 laps after a restart, it's 2 Pro Series drivers. I'm sure those guys aren't going to be very lenient, per se, maybe on those drivers.
No, I don't think so, Tim. And, this is racing. Let's level with everybody here. You're going to have incidents. You're going to have guys getting into each other. And I think most of the people that are on that panel you spoke of understand that. Things are going at high rates of speed, around in a circle. Chaos is bound to break loose at some point. But there's a lot of times you can prevent those things from happening. It looked like in the one replay there, it just appeared that Kenny Humpy bobbled. That's all it was to it. Maybe in the situation with the air or whatever the case was, that he just bobbled and lost the car, and boom, all of a sudden, Ashley Miller's right there, and it's just wrong place, wrong time. Not so much anybody doing anything crazy, but it's a racing deal. We saw Clint Boyer do the same thing on the first lap of the Cup race on Sunday. So even some of the best drivers in the world have that happen to them. It just so happens that we've had 6 of them here in the first 32 laps or so.
Let's take a look in at our drivers that are on the webcams or on the in-car cams or whatever you want to call them here this evening. Landon Harrison in the number 89 being one of them. He's running in position number 35 right now on the racetrack. A couple drivers pitting in front of him, so that might gain him 1 or 2 spots. And Byron Daly in the number 93, who's running in position number 14 right now. So there's a couple of drivers there that Landon Harrison, been a tough season for the Viper in the number 89 Hickenchick sponsored ride. And then you look at the 93 of Byron Daly, and Daly has always had good race cars, Tony. He just hasn't seemed to have the luck to go along with it. And I know Byron's been busy this summer flying back and forth between Florida, helping out at the Science Center down in Florida that has a lot of iRacing involvement there. I know Byron's been down back and forth there, going back to school at UNCC, back home in New York. He's been a busy gentleman here in this summertime, and right now running in position number 14 in the 93. With him settled back into college, might be a little bit easier for him, Tony, to focus a little bit on this series.
Yeah, it could be, Tim, and like you said, he's had just horrible luck all season long. And, he's got bandit chippers in the car this week. They seem to be a good luck charm for Parker Kligerman whenever they're on the car, so maybe Byron Daly can kind of tap into that little luck bank and maybe get a little bit of that good luck as well, since they'll have Bandit on the NASCAR Nationwide Series car this week for Kyle Busch Motorsports and Parker Kligerman. There was a Twitter campaign. Okay, there were about 3 of us. But there was a Twitter campaign earlier today to try to get Parker to do a cameo with us tonight on PSR TV. I think maybe we should lay the pressure on him to come join us the next NASCAR iRacing.com Series World Championship race. What do you think?
Yeah, he was in with us I believe it was either the shootout or the first race of the season. I believe it might have been the shootout off the top of my head at Daytona. And I know he enjoyed himself here watching that number 93. He gets a kick out of seeing his own car go around the racetrack. So we'll have to get Parker back on the show here at some point throughout the season. We still got 5 rounds, I believe, left in this series after this evening. So have to get
Do we have
PK.
enough in the budget for that?
Well, I don't know if we have it in the budget or not. Our catering's pretty good, I guess, though, from what I've heard.
Well, we can't cut out the food.
No.
Cut out the food.
Can't cut out the food. So Parker might have to, we might have to squeeze it in the budget somehow. But, yeah, we'll have to invite Parker back on next time he is free. I know he's got a busy schedule as well with that NASCAR Nationwide Series, but I'm sure he's following along on iRacing Live and on Twitter as well, so I'm sure we'll get a couple of tweets here in a few moments. We're doubled up, though, and getting ready to go back to green, so we're getting ready to go back to business with Ray Alfala, Danny Hansen, Michael Conti, Brian Schoenberg, Tyler Laughlin, your top 5, Brad Davies, Kevin King, Joey Brown, Tom Lewandowski, and Nick Ottinger, your top 10. So it's been status quo from about the last 3 restarts or so. Lap 34 going to come to a close. And Tony, we've had more caution laps, I believe, than we've had green. I'm sure this is going to change here. We're going to get some green flag running into this race. Let's knock on some wood.
We'll get some. Yeah, my head's got enough dents in it from knocking on it already here tonight. But hopefully it will. And if you're Ray Alfala right now, you need at least probably one more caution flag in about the next 10 laps or so, maybe to get you on schedule. Remember, he still has yet to come to pit road, Tim. He is on the original tires and the original, well, the remnants of the original tank of fuel. As we go green, you see the field fan out and scatter as they work their way into turns 1 and 2.
You saw the 51 dive to the inside there. Tyler Laughlin, the 11. Brad Davies going to clear him on the outside as we are back under caution again.
Adam Gilliland has gone around in turn number 1, and looks like he might have had a little bit of help from Brandon Cattell that time. And that will put us under the 7th caution flag of the evening as we complete lap number 35.
We'll see if we can't get maybe a helicopter cam or something of this wreck back at the 81, because it appears we'll look down from the top, maybe a helicopter cam or a sky cam or something, because you look down in this wreck, the 81 and the 80 go in side by side. It doesn't look like, Tony, the 80 changes his line a whole lot. I don't think you can really fault the 80 for this wreck. The 44 slides up the racetrack just a wee bit. Maybe the 81 didn't anticipate the 44 being there or being as slow as him. And then it looks like he comes down onto the 80. It appears to be the 81's maybe incident there for the Gary Mercer Trucking Hickenchicks Chevrolet Impala. So it's been a tough couple of weeks for Adam Gilliland, the Daytona winner, and I'm sure he's not going to be happy with this one either as he goes around and gets into the fence with the left-hand side.
Yeah, he can't be happy with that one, but in all reality, I think you nailed it, Tim. I think that one is pretty much on himself, and it's just a matter of, hey, guess what? You know, you've got you got 90 laps still to go in this race. It's 180 miles, Tim. That is a long race, and now finally, Ray Alfala is coming down pit road, but I got news for you, Ray. It's a very, very lonely pit road, Tim. Not a whole lot of takers with him.
Yeah, Alfala down, and he's going to lose a bunch of track position this time as he is fairly lonely on pit road. He's got a couple of other drivers down there. Brad Davies comes down as well. Tom Lewandowski. Other than that, there might be another handful or so on pit road. So we'll see where Alfala shakes out. It's going to be Danny Hansen now leading the race with Michael Conti, Brian Schoenberg, Tyler Laughlin, and Ray Alfala completing your top, check that, Joey Brown. I'm looking at the wrong scoring monitor. Completing your top 5. Alfala's going to probably drop somewhere, I would say maybe 25th or so. There wasn't a whole lot of guys on pit road, Tony.
No, there really weren't, Tim, and as we've already seen, this could be really, really bad if you're Ray Alfala because, well, it's the middle of the hornet's nest. You are absolutely in the eye of the storm back there, and that's where all the insanity has happened these last 6 or 7 or 10 or whatever it was, caution flags, that we've just been absolutely plagued with here at the onset of this race. So Ray is putting himself in a really, really precarious spot back there, and if something happens, you know he's going to second-guess that strategy all night long and really all week long. Now, if he comes out, smelling like a rose, it might be a different story. But for the time being, Ray Alfala might be regretting that decision. And, oh yeah, guess what he's doing already, Tim? Saving fuel on the back straightaway into turn number 3.
Yeah, Ray anticipating, I'm sure, like everybody is, a long green flag run to this race. And I'm sure we're going to see it. It's just a matter of getting by these first few cautions. And memory serves me correctly, Sunday in that NASCAR Sprint Cup Series race, they had a couple of rough laps to begin that race, couple of solo spins, couple of wrecks. So I'm sure we'll get by this, and we will have some green flag racing to this event. Danny Hansen is scored as your leader. I see the 7 car of Ashley Miller up ahead of your leader. He is currently scored as 2 laps behind the pace. Simon Crochart scored his 1 lap down on pit road right now. Sasha Wessler 3 laps down, and then Humpy, Baldwin, and Adams are all out of the race. So we got 38 drivers right now on the lead lap as we are about, I'd say, 2 laps or so away from going back green.
Yeah, Tim, and this is, like you said, been a pretty challenging opening segment of the race. The good news is we're almost about a third of the way through the race, and things should start to sort of file themselves out and thin themselves out, if you will, as time goes on. But, you know, again, if you're Ray Alfala right now and you have this long green flag run, Tim, and you're back in wherever he's at now, 20th spot, that's a lot of cars to pass in a long green flag run, and you've already put yourself behind the 8 ball and really cut the race by 33%. So now instead of 250 miles, you've got, what, 100 and... Hold on, let me do the math here. 40 and 100. So you've got 170 miles to try to get the job done. That's a pretty good chunk of time to get it done, but it's also losing a good bit as well.
And you see a lot of those drivers working towards that apron. You talk about the fuel strategy being played out there. You see the 20, the 5. They're all on the apron, trying to make it a little bit shorter around this racetrack so they can gain maybe that quarter lap or the half lap or whatever the case may be under green around this racetrack, as we should be getting ready to go back to green next time by. You see the 3 J-Show cars lining up side by side on the front straightaway. Nice little photo opportunity there as they went 3 wide across the line. They'll get double file now, and we'll be back to green flag racing and next time by. Hansen, Conti, Schoenberg, now Laughlin in position number 4, and Joey Brown completing your top 5. King, Ottinger, Brandon Hawk back up into the top 10. Michael J. Johnson, and look who's cracked the top 10 again. It's Byron Daly in the 93. Watch for the Bandit Chippers Ford and see what he can do here.
I think it'll be pretty good here, Tim. And again, this might be the green flag restart that we end up having this 100-lap green flag run. I mean, anything's really possible here, and that's what I think is going through the minds of some of these competitors is what can happen and how do I need to position myself for it, not only on the racetrack, but with pit strategy. And as we've talked about, Ray Alfala pretty much on his own strategy, everybody else on one of 2 or 3 different pit strategies. It's impossible to try to keep track of who's on what strategy right now. But one thing does remain, with the exception of Ray Alfala, I think everybody still has to make 2 more pit stops.
Yeah, going to be excited to see how this strategy plays out here for some of these drivers up in front. You see a lot of those drivers in the top 5 or so that are on different strategies, and the likes of Carson McClellan, Marcus Lindsay, and a few others that are in there as well. Kevin King, I believe, is on the same strategy as well. So we'll see how this plays out. Pace car going to duck off here. 39 laps completed at the stripe. And the Focus Eyewear Ford Fusion is gone. Green flag flies, and Danny Hansen is your leader. Watch the 51. He might be the wild card in this battle as the 5 slices the 55 down to the inside. And Schoenberg going to try to go to that inside line as the 51 Laughlin on the outside of the 55. Side by side through 1 and 2.
Laughlin trying to make something happen up there on the outside of Schoenberg and work off turn number 2. That's one of the tightest spots in this racetrack, Tim. And so far, everybody seems to have cleared it without any incident. But Laughlin unable to get by Brian Schoenberg. In fact, he's going to have to fall back into the 4th spot with Ray Alfala up there on the other part of your screen. Looks like Ray has found a little bit of speed here in the get-go, and I don't blame him. The easiest time he's going to have all night of passing race cars when they're all bunched and clumped together immediately after a restart.
But that's around that Hornet's Nest. Is the 3-car way up the racetrack in that region as well. The 29 of Kevin King getting a little close up here with the number 12 of Joey Brown, the 05 of Nick Ottinger, the 53 of Brandon Hawk in here as well. And we mentioned the strategy as the 29 and 51 side by side. Now it's the 12 poking his nose in the battle as well. The Barley Electrical number 12 of Joey Brown looking to pick up a spot. Nick Ottinger in the 05, the 53 of Brandon Hawk. Great 5-car battle here for position number 4 as we work down the front straightaway into corner number 1. 51 holding on to it, but the 29 rim riding here looking to pick up the spot. It's all happening behind the J-Show 3, the school bus leading the field.
And you've got to remember here, Tim, these are some of the drivers that might have a shot at the championship if something were to happen to Ray Alfala. You look at Nick Ottinger there on the 05 machine. He's right there in the thick of things as well. And, you know, he might always be back in, say, 4th spot after drops, but if Ray were to have a bad race here tonight, he could close right up within striking distance on that number 2 machine. Look at Joey Brown now to the inside of Laughlin and King, making it 3 wide. He's going to try to bomb it off in there in turn number 1. Up the racetrack he comes. Laughlin very, very wisely gives him the room. That could have been... Oh, and look at Laughlin. Give him a shot down the back straightaway.
Yeah, this thing's not over. Watch the 51 of Tyler Lawlin, the 05, to the inside of Nick Ottinger in the Ream Chevrolet, the 53. Also going to go to the inside here as he will try to pick up one more spot. That's Brandon Hawk, the 39 of Michael Johnson, the 24 of Carson McClellan, and the 93 of Byron Daly in this train on the inside. Daly to the outside. Oh, it's the 51. Cuts off the 39 almost there. Going down to the corner. I believe the 39 may have had to hold his breath there a little bit. As you look back from the 53, you see the 39 poking the nose to the inside of the 51. The 93 of Byron Daly keeping the 24 honest. Almost a little bit of contact there. A little bit of a tango down the back straightaway as the 39 and 24 to the inside. 93 up there as well. And he might get shoveled out of line because here comes the 83 of Jared Crawford to the inside. The 1 going to try to follow him through.
Oh, I thought Byron was going to cut across the nose of Marcus Lindsay. Somehow they were able to fan out and avoid it, but now you're going to have Byron stuck in the middle in the entrance to turn number 1, and he is still stuck up top. The good, oh, hello, Jared Crawford. Check it up behind him. Brad Davies gets into Alex Warren. Looks like Ray Alfala caught a little bit of bumper tag in that one as well. No harm, no foul, but that could have been really, really ugly. They're still doing 160-some miles an hour in the center of the corner there, Tim. That's not exactly a cakewalk.
Yeah, that could have been huge and huge in a hurry as the 93, 83, and 0, or the 1 still battling at it as the 1 of Lindsay to the underneath of the 93 of Byron Daly. The 83 of Jarrett Crawford trying to escape this as this is your battle for positions 10, 11, and 12. Crawford holds onto it, the 1 of Lindsay, the 93 of Daly, the 44 of Lee Heron also in this battle as well. Down the back straightaway, working lap number 46 of 125. And don't look now, boys. Here comes Black Magic. Ray Alfala to the inside of the 44. He'll pick up a spot on Heron.
And Ray Alfala at the moment, Tim, I don't want to jinx it, but at the moment is starting to unfurl the pedals and starting to look just like the rose we talked about. The more we go, the longer this run continues, the more stretched out this field gets, the more likely we're going to have a long green flag run, which favors Ray Alfala because if everything goes according to plan right now, he can make it, I think, on one more stop. Everybody else has to make 2. If that happens, Ray is going to be loving life, and he won't be very aggressive because he knows there's no sense in racing people that can't beat you since they have to pit one more time.
You're right on board with Ray Alfala. You see the 93 in front of you now. The 1 poking his nose underneath the 83 at Jarrett Crawford as they go side by side after the start-finish line into corner number 1. It should be the 1 on this battle. The 93, though, of Byron Daly and the 2 of Ray Alfala are now looking to the inside of the 83. So Jarrett Crawford not only going to lose 1 position, he may very well lose 3 as they work down the back straightaway. On lap number 48, the 83 going to slot into line here. No, 93 still going to be on the inside. Down into corner number 3, and it looks like the 2 is also going to try to push and gain that 1 more spot. Jarrett Crawford up in no man's land. He's going to try to pull it down here in front of the 44 and stop the bleeding at 13th.
And he'll at least put a Band-Aid on it for the time being. He's got that 44 of Heron behind him, but nowhere within striking distance. And right now, Alfala going to go by the number 93 of Byron Daly. And like we talked about, Tim, I don't think Ray is going to be very aggressive at this point. I think he's going to take whatever is given to him and just slowly make his way forward because, like we said, everybody else has to pit twice by my calculation. I think he can make it on 1 stop. So again, why race somebody that can't beat you? Ray Alfala might be a completely different man if this race stays green.
93 to the inside of the 83 as they go side by side at position at number 11. check that position number 12. Yeah, I believe you're right, Tony. They're crunching those numbers on that pit strategy. We're starting to get a long green flag run here. Ray Alfala knows a lot of these drivers up in front, if this thing stays green, are going to have to pit before he has to come down pit road again. So maybe take your time, pick off your positions as you can, as this battle for third is heating up. Kevin King to the inside as he will pick up a spot. The 12 of Joey Brown will pick up a spot as well, and Brian Schoenberg is dispatched to the back of the bus, or at least fifth place in this exchange. The 05 of Ottinger also looking to dispatch him outside the top 5.
Schoenberg, you wouldn't believe this probably, Tim, if you look at the running order, because here he is inside the top 5 at the closing in on the halfway distance or halfway mark of this race. But he pretty much unloaded everything on that car and said, I've got no idea what I've got. I just threw something at it, and we're going to hope and pray it works. Well, it's working pretty good for him. It's working even better for Kevin King. He gets by the number 5 of Michael Connie, and Joey Brown going to try to follow suit with that number 29. And here comes Schoenberg. No matter what he's got underneath that car, it is digging for him down the apron as he works into turn number 1. He's going to try to get back by Brown. Thought better of it. Wise move for Brian Schoenberg, although he might lose another spot or two in the process.
And you look at that number 5 of Mike Conti, it almost looked like he was going to go to the inside of the 55, but really cut his teammate a break. When you look at it behind, though, Nick Ottinger's coming to the front of the field as well in the 05. Got to be careful of that 05. If you're the 5 of Mike Conti, you're also going for second place in the championship, keep in mind. 55-5 and 05 going for that second place spot here. But you got to remember the 05 of Ottinger. He's one of those drivers, Tony, that can be aggressive if he needs to be to get the spot. He's now on the inside of the number 5 of Mike Conti, side by side at position number 5. The 05 of Ottinger to the inside, the 5 of Conti to the outside. And here comes Brandon Hawk in the 53. Hawk is looking to move up a little bit closer to the front of the field as well. So Ottinger looking to move up into the top 5 here.
He's got to run on the number 5 of Connie in the preferred lane, for that matter, in turn number 3. So Ottinger going to try to complete that pass. He'll do so in the middle of 3 and 4. So Ottinger up a spot, and look ahead of him. Here comes Kevin King to the inside of Danny Hansen. California fans are on their feet. Their man Kevin King to the point here at Michigan.
And it looks like the 20 is going to be thrown to at least position number 3 as the Focus Eyewear Ford to the outside of the Barley Electrical Chevrolet. Drag race down the back straightaway with the 12 on the inside, trying to keep that inside line on the number 20 of Danny Hansen. Great run, throws it into corner number 3, and the 12 will take the spot over the 20. The 55 and the 05 now complete your top 5, as we'll come by this time and complete the 54th of 125 laps. The 05 dives to the inside on the front straightaway. Nick Ottinger looking to make a move on the 55 of Brian Schoenberg, and those drivers that stayed out the longest as the 53 goes to the inside of the 05 of Ottinger, side by side at 5th. You talk about those J-Show teammates now, Tony. They are sitting 3rd, 4th, and 7th right now.
Pretty good showing for that group, Tim, but the thing they need to worry about, I think some of those guys pitted about lap, I think it was lap 17 or so, somewhere about halfway through that run. We're closing in on probably the first round of green flag pit stops for some of those early takers to pit road. And as we've talked about, we're going to have multiple waves and multiple strategies, multiple cycles playing out throughout this race. And that's going to be the big thing to watch right now as we close in even closer to the halfway point. As right now, Ottinger is just absolutely hounding the 55 machine of Brian Schoenberg.
And you know, I really wouldn't want to be in that first sequence as you see the 05 dive underneath the 55. Brian Schoenberg, he's going to pick up that spot, and the 55 going to pull in front of the 53 of Brandon Hawk. I really wouldn't want to be in that first group, Tony, because number one, you're a little bit closer on the strategy. Is got a couple of those guys flirted with the wall coming off of corner number 4. The 53 of Hawk got into it, and now the 5 and the 39 to the inside of Brandon Hawk to complete the point. You guys are coming down pit road. If something happens in that first group and a caution flag comes out, you're stuck behind that 8 ball again. So the 53 of Brandon Hawk is fighting that race car. When he comes down pit road, I'm sure they're going to throw an adjustment at it.
Absolutely, Tim. That thing is a handful. Lost the nose a lap or so ago right here on the exit of turn number 4 and just crushed the outside wall. Wasn't even the safer barrier, I don't think. It was the actual concrete, but he has got his hands full. It sent everybody scurrying. Sent Johnson scurrying, McClellan, Lindsay as well. Everybody took evasive action as they tried to get by the number 53 machine of Brandon Hawk. Meanwhile, a little bit ahead of them, it is Kevin King and Joey Brown still going at it. But Kevin King, well, he's able to retake the lead after Joey Brown is able to nose ahead the line a lap or so ago. And I think right now, these two, at this point in the race, are the class of the field.
Yeah, I think you're right, Tony. I'm not sure if maybe the 20 or the 05 or anybody else might be saving anything, but I think the 29 and the 12 seem to be the two drivers that are really the class of the field right now. 51 car, I believe, is coming to pit road. That's Tyler Laughlin. So the first round of pit stops beginning. Brandon Hawk is way up the racetrack in no man's land at about position number 8 right now, as the 39, 24, 1, 83, and 93 are all in this little conga line underneath the number 53. Hawk might be able to fit in front of the number 93 here of Byron Daly if he can get that car down to the inside, and he almost got down on the 83 of Jarrett Crawford.
Yeah, that car just will not go, Tim. It looks tight on entry. It looks tight on exit as you ride on board with Marcus Lindsay trying to go by Carson McClellan. But to go back to the Hawk situation, he's having to back the corner up. He can't get the run into the corner, but because he backs the corner up, his center is really good, but then he loses the nose again. So he's trying to carry that car until his pit stop, but it is a handful for Brandon Hawk. He is trying to drive not only with the steering wheel, but also with the pedals of that machine, and it is difficult to do sometimes here at Michigan. But so far, he's done a pretty respectable job of getting the job done.
Danny Hansen, the 05 of Ottinger, side by side in position number 3 as Ottinger beginning to make his move to the top 3. Ottinger going to pick up the spot, and now the J-Show bus is back in formation. Only instead of it being the top 3 positions, it's 4th, 5th, and 6th right now. And they've got a little separation between them as they go down the back straightaway, working lap number 61 of 125. So just a couple of laps away from the halfway point in round number 13 of the NASCAR iRacing.com Series World Championship at Michigan.
Hate to say it, Tim, but I never thought we were going to get to this point the way the opening 30 laps or so went. But after that rash of yellow fever, we got some antibiotics, and it seems like Green Flag Racing is the cure, except for more cowbell, but that's a whole different story. So King, Brown, and then the 05 machine of Ottinger. So some names that we've seen up front all season long. And, oh yeah, Ray Alfala, he's still right back there in the middle of the pack in 13th. But like we talked about, Tim, I don't think he's going to be very aggressive due to the pit strategies that everybody's on. He is sitting in the catbird seat right now. Absolutely, I think, able to make it on one more stop.
Yeah, he put Brandon Hawk in his rearview mirror, so he sits in position number 12 right now. Just behind them, Brandon Hawk and Lee Herron go side by side as Hawk continues to fall like a stone through this field. But Ray Alfala next up on the list, about a second ahead of him, is Byron Daly, and then he's got Michael J. Johnson, Jarrett Crawford, Carson McClellan, all the way up to 6th in that pack too, which also includes Marcus Lindsay and Michael Conti. 83 to the inside of the 24 down the back straightaway. That is your battle for position number 8 as Carson McClellan tries to hold on to it over Jarrett Crawford. It closes in Michael Johnson and Byron Daly as well as they continue to go side by side. The 24 is standing to lose, possibly 2 here if he can't slot into line. There's a position there, and it looks like the 39 of Michael J. Johnson might resist the temptation, Tony, of taking position number 9 at this point away from the driver in front of him.
Yes, discretion, the better part of valor there, is Johnson just, I think, maybe cracked the throttle enough to let Carson McClellan into line. And that's good news for this group because now they're able to maintain their lap speed and start trying to chase down the next pair in front of them, which includes the number 1 of Marcus Lindsay and the 5 of Michael Conti. And Conti looks like coming down pit road. Same with Brian Schoenberg. He too on pit road, and Danny Hansen. So the first round of green flag pit stops from the leaders, Tim, now underway. Again, Conti, Schoenberg, and Hansen, all to the attention of their crews.
And these guys pitted a little bit earlier than the guys like Kevin King, Joey Brown, Nick Ottinger, and a few others in that pack as well. So we should see them down as well, I believe, within the next 5 laps or so. So the round of green flag pit stops is beginning here. Jay Show on pit road, and they are joined by Ashley Miller in the 7. They are all down and away, so it looks like they'll have a 4-car little draft there on the exit of pit road, as most of your leaders, at least within the top 15 or so, stay out on the racetrack. Looks like Brandon Schmidt is the only driver in the lead lap pack that's down on pit road here, as the 3 going to be all by his lonesome down on pit road lap 65.
Pit lane.
Now here's the quandary you're going to be in, Tim. If you're Danny Hansen, Brian Schoenberg, Michael Connie, and these guys, you're praying that this race stays green, because if it does not, your strategy just went completely out the window and your race is done. If you're Kevin King, Joey Brown, any of these guys, you too probably want a caution flag, because now you can get back on sequence with everybody else and keep some of your competition buried in the field. So this is a very, very important part of this race right now, to see how these strategies play out, how drivers like Schoenberg, Conti, and company are able to slice through the traffic they're in the middle of right now. You see Hansen going by McClellan, Schoenberg, Conti. They're that much faster, Tim. But the problem is, new tires versus old tires, that closing rate sometimes, that maneuverability can be a problem and can end up creating an issue.
They go to the outside of the pitting 83 at Jarrett Crawford, as he will come on to pit road in this lap. Your leaders are just in front of this little train here of J Show drivers, or bus, if you may be, to the inside of the number 1 of Marcus Lindsay. And I know there's some drivers inside this top 10, Tony, that are coming down. I see Byron Daly out of the corner of my eye down on pit road now.
Yep, he is in as well. He was up there inside the top 10, like you said. And looks like it's going to be 4 tires and fuel on the Bandit Chippers machine of Byron Daly. Same on the number 83 machine of Jared Crawford, the JDR Graphics machine of Crawford, now going to be finishing his service on the left-hand side. And it looks like Kevin King now going to make the decision to come down pit road. And I tend to wonder, Tim, was this decision forced on their part by the speed of those who've already pitted, or is this simply the extent of their fuel mileage?
It might be a little bit of both, as I believe the 29 was coming down close to his window as King in the Hot Tamales Alpine Stars. Number 29 will stop in his box, and the crew will go to work on that race car. Right side tires going up. On the 29 should be 4 tires for that driver, as the 24 Carson McClellan is well behind him doing the same thing. 12 car coming onto pit road at the end of it. The Barley Electrical number 12 at Joey Brown taking this opportunity on lap 69 to come down to the attention of his crew. Ottinger will stay out. He will lead lap number 69.
So Brown down to pit road. I mean, he came in hot, Tim. That's been one of the hottest entries in the pit road I've seen. He didn't hot pit, so to speak, as we say here in iRacing, but he came in hard and absolutely hit his marks to get down to pit road speed limit at the very last moment. And it looks like that Barley Electrical crew now going to try to be lightning fast as they work 4 tires on his machine and fill it full of Sunoco Racing fuel. It looks like now the 05 machine of Nick Ottinger going to be coming down pit road. Michael Johnson joining them. Lee Herring going to be coming down as well. So a couple more drivers down to the attention of their crews, as service still continuing on a lot of these cars as these cycles and these pit stop sequences continue to play out.
There's a valuable bonus point for Marcus Lindsay in the number 1. Lindsay will stay out as Ottinger's team will go to work on the 05 as Marcus Lindsay stays out on the racetrack. That's a really valuable bonus point when you talk about the championship chase, as the number 1 of Marcus Lindsay will stay out on the racetrack this time by. You see a lot of those drivers on the fresh tires making their way by a little bit of the slower traffic.
Yeah, a lot of these guys now are having to fight these people that have stayed out on older tires because what their pit sequence dictates, and really for that matter, they're trying to keep themselves in position, because that's ultimately a race for position. What could be the race for the lead after it all cycles out, or it could be the race for 17th. I really don't think anybody knows right now, Tim. They're ahead of the leader, which is, right now, Marcus Lindsay and Ray Alfala, so they're ahead of him, but at the tail end of the lead lap. But again, a caution can change everything. And all these drivers we just saw racing for the lead now are racing for position back in 20th spot or so. It's hard to believe you'd race that fiercely for 20th spot.
And when this cycle's through, though, that'll be the battle for the lead as the 12 of Joey Brown will take the spot on Kevin King. And Brandon Hawk being reported he is out of fuel in the number 53 car, slowing down onto pit road. He will make it back, but he will lose a bunch of positions as Alala in the 2 right now, running in position at number 3 the last time by, as Casey Malone in the 92 passed up the number 2 car of Ray Alala on that exchange. 73 laps in the books this time by as Marcus Lindsay continues to lead it.
And Lindsay has about a 5-second advantage right now over Casey Malone and Ray Alala. Thomas Lewandowski right there in the middle of that pack as well. Brad Davies, Rob Ackley, Kevin Burris, Brandon Bowie, Landon Harrison, and Peter Bennett right now making up the top 10. And again, Ray Alala stuck in the middle of this, gave up a spot a lap or two ago to Casey Malone, but, you know, why race guys, as we said, Tim, that cannot beat you? If Alala is on a single stop strategy from this point forward, there's nobody else that can beat him except maybe, depending on how this works out. Well, nope, Marcus Lindsay won't because he's on pit road. Casey Malone, Thomas Lewandowski, this group might be able to beat Ray Alala, but we'll find out. So Marcus Lindsay on pit road.
He's going to come down to the attention of his crew. Should be 4 tires from the number 1 of Lindsay. And as you mentioned, Tony, it's Casey Malone in the Gary Mercer Trucking, number 92, leading this field over by about 3 lengths over the 2-time and defending champion, Ray Alala. Tom Lewandowski, Brad Davies, Rob Ackley. Your top 5 the last time by the scoring loop. Casey Malone will stay out, as will Ray Alala, Tom Lewandowski, Brad Davies, Rob Ackley, as I mentioned, top 5. All within this little train right now, about a second or so in between your top 5. Kevin Burris trying to tack onto that as well, and he's taking Brandon Bowie in tow.
And that group has got a pretty good advantage over the rest of the field right now, Tim, and it's just amazing to see. This is really the first race we've seen all season with this big of a variety of pit stop strategies. So many choices on sequence, and everybody, I think, maybe playing the risk game, playing the gamble. If trouble! Lee Heron down the front straightaway in the grass. He'll somehow hold on to it. He got turned here on the front straightaway. No contact. He mowed down the bushes in victory lane, but Lee Heron will keep it righted and headed in the right direction, and we will stay green.
Yeah, he got into the wall and went through the infield. A wild ride for Lee Heron, but no caution. The battle for the lead heats up. 2 of Ray Alala to the inside, down the back straightaway on the 92 of Casey Malone, and the Pro Geek Consulting Ford Fusion will go to the lead once again on the 92 of Casey Malone. Now you would think the 92 of Casey Malone might be thinking pit road here. They got past her lead. Possibly it might be time to head down. Tom Lewandowski, Brad Davies, Rob Ackley in this pack also decide to stay out, and actually Rob Ackley passed Brad Davies.
I think, Tim, what you're seeing now is Ray Alala realizing who he has to race. Now he knows the pit sequence, the pit strategy of almost everybody else around him. So he knows, I have to race Casey Malone. I have to race Thomas Lewandowski, Rob Ackley, Brad Davies. These are the guys that can beat me if I let them. So this is what's going to matter. And now here comes Casey Malone down pit road. It's going to be really close to that Gary Mercer Trucking group. That's going to put it about 40, well, that's going to put him almost at 50 laps, about 47 laps, Tim. So that might be a little snug and a little close for comfort for Casey Malone. Now watch, Ray Alala, he'll probably back off a little bit more now to allow Lewandowski and company to catch him, but he will not let them beat him, so to speak.
We'll see what the 2 strategy is right now, running all by his lonesome. The next driver that is behind him is about a second or so behind. He's got a couple of lap cars between himself and Tom Lewandowski. It's Tyler Laughlin and Alex Warren, and that's actually a battle for position 31 right now, as Warren has taken the spot on the number 51 car. There goes Casey Malone at a pit road as Ray Alala will continue to lead this thing, and Tom Lewandowski being chased down by Rob Ackley and Brad Davies. Brandon Bowie complete your top 5 right now. As you see that passer lead on Casey Malone. Ray Alfala taking the advantage, and then a couple of laps later, the 92 deciding he's going to come down to pit road.
Exactly, Tim. I'm starting to try to pull out the calculator here. Ray Alfala pitted on lap 37 is when he came to pit road. We had some caution laps, and we've had a few chances for him to save a little bit of fuel. But right now, he is at 44 laps, not counting, which one's a caution or whatever. And he's got 44 laps this time by to make it to the end. I think if Ray can make it to about lap 83 or about lap 84, he will be good for the rest of the race. So these 2 or 3 laps are critical to Ray Alfala and his strategy for trying to win tonight's race.
And keep in mind, as the 2 this time by will bypass pit road, he's not the only guy in this strategy, Tony. You look back at your former leaders of this race, and I'm talking the Kevin Kings, the Joey Brown, Nick Ottinger. You have about 12 or so out in front of them that have stayed out to this point. Rob Ackley's going to come down pit road this time. I believe Brandon Bowie is also down there as well. So that list at 12 is going to be shortened a little bit. But the likes of Ray Alfala, Tom Lewandowski, Davies, Bennett, Gilbert, Blackford, Busa, I believe Chad Coleman was on that list. I believe he may have come down pit road that time by. Ray Alfala going to come down pit road this time by on lap number 82. Going to be close here, I think, Tony.
It is going to be close for Ray Alfala. He'll do this at the completion of lap number 82. That's going to leave 43 laps for him to try to make it. He's cutting it close. If he had another lap in the tank, I would have taken it, but I'm sure he stretched it as far as he can stretch it. Ray Alfala, if this race stays green, might run out of gas on the white flag lap.
I don't know if you caught it behind him, but Brad Davies had that thing sideways about 4 times coming on to pit road as he tried to slow it down to pit speed. Alfala completing his stop. He'll be down the way momentarily. Tom Lewandowski is scored as your leader, and I believe Lewandowski's going to come down this time by. Yes, indeed, 16. Going to come down to the attention of his crew this time by, and he's going to take a little more conservative pit entry than Brad Davies did, as Blackford, also in the Snow Cone Productions Ford Fusion, going to head down pit road as well. So lap 82-83 is really where these guys are not going to push it anymore. I see Matt Busa staying out on the racetrack in the number 34. He might be the only one that's still out there on the racetrack trying to extend this. He might be the best one on the strategy here, Tony.
He might be, Tim. It's he can pretty much, guarantee himself making it to the end of this point. It's going to be tight and it's going to be close, but I think he was last on pit road on lap number 30. Actually, I'm trying to look back here and see in the notes. It looks like lap 38 is when he was last on pit road. So if that's the case, and now, yes, here he'll come down pit road. He's got an extra 2 laps now on Ray Alfala, so Busa, yes, can make it to the end. It might be an upset, and remember, he was involved in a couple of those early incidents, Tim. It might be one of those deals of those things worked out to be a blessing in disguise if it cycles through the way that it appears it could.
And keep in mind as well, though, Tony, those other drivers that were out there, Joey Brown, Ottinger, Crawford, the rest of the field, they were only about 5 seconds or so behind Matt Busa when Busa came to pit road. We believe Joey Brown, Nick Ottinger, Jared Crawford, unless they found something extra in that tank, are going to have to come down again. So it might work for Matt Busa for, let's say, a top 10 finish, but he's got some work to do if he wants to gain a little bit more time on this field, because he just made his final pit stop, but Brown, Ottinger, Crawford, King, Lindsay, all those other guys, they'll also have to make one more pit stop, and they were only 5 seconds behind the 34.
But that was 5 seconds at the end of that run, Tim. If they're closing in on him at the end of the race with 5 seconds between them, that's all that matters. They're still behind him. So a lot of this is going to play out maybe, and again, all this is pending any sort of caution flags, if you will. But pit strategy, I think, is going to see Ray Alfala near the front. We're going to see Casey Malone near the front, Matt Busa near the top of the leaderboard. Rob Ackley might try to risk it, same with Alex Warren. All these guys at the top of the leaderboard when this next cycle of pit stops has to take place. However, the one thing we've not taken into consideration, Tim, they're only going to have 10 or 15 laps to go when they need to make the next pit stop. Instead of 4 tires and a full tank of fuel, do they take 2 tires or no tires and a quick splash of fuel? That's a factor we haven't factored into our calculations yet.
And we've seen those tires pay off dividends at the end of these runs, so it's going to be something to watch. Do you take 4 tires and a little bit of fuel? Do you only take 2 tires? What's the strategy as the school bus changes positions back here at around position number 6, 7, and 8? As the 05 of Ottinger will go to the top of the board over Joey Brown and Jarrett Crawford. And, big bubble from the 05 of Ottinger, and he may have caught a piece of the wall with the rear end of the Ream Chevrolet as they came out of corner number 2. And they have broken away, actually, by about 2.5 seconds over Jarrett Crawford in the 83 and Kevin King in the 29. But it's going to be exciting to see here on this last round of pit stops. We know Alala, Ackley, and Davies, or we at least assume that they are done pitting for the event. It's going to be close without maybe a caution lap or 2, but we assume those guys are done, and they're 10 seconds behind, so they're sitting in a very good position right now that, if they needed to, they could probably conserve maybe 1 lap of fuel or whatever the case may be to possibly get them to the end.
Yeah, absolutely, Tim. They've got, 10, 12, 15 seconds to the lead. You cannot pit even for a splash of fuel in 15 seconds here. You're going to lose at least 3/4 of a lap. So yes, if you're Ray Alala and you've taken charge and know who's on your same strategy, Ackley, Davies, Lewandowski and company, then you know who you have to beat, as we've talked about, and you know who you can afford to let pass you and how much fuel you can save. So again, multiple strategies, multiple pit sequences. Some guys going to go straight, wide open, and some guys are going to sit here and try to pedal to make it to the end.
And I know you want to join into the conversation here. If you want to join into the conversation, get on Twitter and get into the hashtag IRacingWCS. That's hashtag IRacingWCS, and get involved in the conversation. And I know there's a great one going on Facebook, Tony, with all the strategy going back and forth between the fans and the virtual crew chiefs, I guess we can call them, as to when do you pit, what do you do for strategy. And right now, Ottinger, Brown, Crawford, your top 3 in this race. We know they have to pit one more time. We believe Alfala, Ackley, Davies, some of those other guys back there can make it. If not, it'll be just a slight splash and go. But right now, as it stands, they're not gaining any on the leaders, so it's going to be an exciting strategy here. We might even see 1 or 2 drivers possibly short pit to try to get it to the end of the race. I don't know what those strategies are, and I guess that's why we're up here and not in these race cars.
Yeah, Tim, you bring up a very good point. The short pitting, if you're an Ottinger or a Brown or a Jarrett Crawford or whoever, you can't make it. You may decide to short pit. Now, that is a pretty big gamble because, as we've talked about, if the caution comes out, you've pretty much written your own death sentence, if you will. But it could pay big dividends in that you get a chance to get out on the racetrack and just go wide open. Maybe take 2 tires to get a little bit of extra advantage out there on your competition. So a lot of different things are playing out right now. And again, 1 caution flag is all it's going to take to completely turn this thing on its head. And I too am looking at this tweet, tweeting conversation, Twitter conversation, whatever you want to call it, tweet-a-thon, I don't know. But using hashtag IRacingWCS and hashtag Niswick, there's a lot of people thinking that, a couple of these could play out. And it's a pretty... This is by far, I think, one of the most interesting races we've had all season to see exactly how it's going to play out, Tim, on the strategy side of things. None of us know what's going to happen. We have our ideas, but we really still don't know because there are so many possibilities.
And looking at the standings right now, Tony, and I'm looking at the top 10 in this race, with the exception of Tom Moustakis, who sits in position number 9 right now, and Jarrett Crawford, who has missed a few races in the 83, who's running in position number 3. All the top 10 right now, and actually top 11, are within the top 16, 17-ish in the standings. So they all have something to race for. At least they're trying to get the top 12 to get at least some iRacing credit out of the end of this season. So if you're up there, I don't know if you really take the gamble of a short pit. If you're Jarrett Crawford or if you're a Tom Moustakas and you really have nothing to lose, maybe that's more of an option for you than it is, let's say, a Joey Brown or a Nick Ottinger. Ottinger battling for that second spot in the standings, and then you look at Joey Brown. Actually, I look at Joey Brown. He's actually 26 in the standings. I thought he was a little bit higher than that. Won a race earlier this season, so maybe if you're Joey Brown, maybe you go in that same boat as a Jarrett Crawford or a Tom Moustakas or a Rob Ackley and maybe try something a little bit different.
Exactly, Tim. If you know that what you're doing is not going to win you the race and you have that leeway, try something different. What's the worst that can happen? You finish worse than you were running? Okay, big flipping deal. Those guys, a lot of them are here for one thing: wins. Get to victory lane, make everybody on the car happy, make yourself happy, make your teammates proud, and that's all you care about. You don't care about points racing because, quite frankly, points racing sucks. So some of those guys like Crawford and Moustakas and so on down the line, as you talked about, they're actually in a state of freedom right now. They're in one of those utopian worlds of all they care about is winning races, and that frees their mind up to try a whole bunch of different things. It's really a cool deal when you're in that situation, and you never know. Like you said, you might see them take that gamble, but time is not on their side. There's only 28 laps to go this next time by.
You see Byron Daly on the tail of this two-car pack here. He is the first driver one lap down in position number 31. And just in front of your leaders is Tyler Hudson in the 01, set to go a lap down, which would put him in position number 30, one lap down. So we could see also a battle for the free pass spot. If we do see a caution flag here, is the 05 will work underneath the 01, and that will put the 01 a lap down. We'll see how the rest of the 93 can be here as Byron Daly will go underneath, and he threw it in and nearly got the 12 there too. Joey Brown as the 01 of Hudson will fall back into line. It looks like it'll be no contest for the 93 of Byron Daly to put the free pass position in jeopardy at this point. 05 and 12, your top two. As the 93, it appears that Byron Daly, Tony, might have a little bit of a better car than the 12 and the 05. He's really thrown it in these last couple of laps, but nowhere to put it unless he wants to get into the back of the 12.
Yeah, exactly. Now, remember, Byron pitted last now on lap 67, so he's actually coming closer and closer to the end of his run. He's got about 15 laps or so till he will need to come back to pit road, but that car is certainly looking sporty, Tim. And actually, check that. Byron came to pit road. We've already missed it, Tim, on lap number 86. So Byron Daly has taken that short pit strategy we talked about. He can make it the rest of the way. So Daly now unlapping himself, or trying to unlap himself, to put himself in position. He now can go the rest of the way, and he is hoping this race will go green to the finish.
Yeah, he's going to need some help, though, as you mentioned. The 93 of Byron Daly over the bumps into corner number 1. He's got the 05 in front of him of Ottinger, and he's trying to unlap himself. And just in front of your leaders, actually, is another driver that likes these fuel mileage races. He's won one in this series, Jake Sturgis, in the 41, is the 93 to the outside of the 05, and Ottinger going to make him earn that lap back, and the 93 will be back on the same lap as your leaders, albeit about 40 seconds behind your leaders, as Byron Daly will get back on the lead lap. He's about 3 lengths ahead of the 05 of Nick Ottinger. Joey Brown is in second. About 3 seconds behind is Jarrett Crawford. Marcus Lindsay is back in fourth over Kevin King in the number 29. J-Show runs 6th, 7th, and 8th with Hanson, Conti, Schoenberg. Tom Moustakas in position number 9, and Michael Johnson in 10th. Let's see if we can't get a camera back on the 39, the 2 of Ray Alfala, as Alfala is trying to break back into the top 10. Looking over the fast track sims, number 39 of Michael J. Johnson. They got the 48 as well as Simon Crochart back here, but I believe he is multiple laps down right now in a position, actually 34, 2 laps down. But that's your battle for 10th right now, Tony, the 39 and the 2.
And again, Tim, I don't see Ray being very aggressive. He's going to try to get by him if he can, if he's holding him up. But Ray right now, I think, is the highest running driver that can make it the rest of the way on fuel. So, again, he knows who he has to be. He knows who he's actually racing. They might be on the racetrack together, but Ray Alfala right now is in the catbird seat. and he is going to be sitting very, very pretty before this one is all said and done. Again, assuming we stay green. And to see some of these guys further back, like Byron Daly, who we talked about, go ahead and short pit to try to race their way forward. Obviously, I don't think Byron's going to pass Ray and make up a half a lap, but we also don't know for sure that Ray Alfala can make it the whole way. He may be a lap or two short the way our calculations go. So there's a lot that we still have to figure out here, and only time is going to tell us the answer.
Yeah, there's the 83 coming down to pit road as Jarrett Crawford will come to the attention of his crew. Tyler Laughlin in the 51 was also down pit road on that last lap. Ottinger Brown continue to lead this race with Byron Daly just in front of them. But you mentioned it, we not quite sure if the two can make it as the 05 of Ottinger moves to the 93 of Byron Daly to the inside, and that will put Byron Daly back one lap down for the time being. But as we mentioned, we don't know if the two can make it. We don't know if a guy like Rob Ackley can make it, Brad Davies, Tom Lewandowski. So we'll have to see. As Jay Show is down on pit road, at least Brian Schoenberg, I believe, is down on pit road in the 55. The 20 of Danny Hansen and the 5 of Mike Conti actually stay out, so it's only one of them down on pit road on this lap. The 55 of Schoenberg now down and away.
And again, Tim, this is where it's all going to play out. Now you have to make that strategy call. You have to make the big bucks. That's why I love iRacing, because it makes you, it puts you in the same predicament, in the same situations that the big guys on Sunday get paid the big bucks for. And you realize it's not nearly as easy as it looks like on television. And, you know, speaking of the reality of this game, I don't know if you're familiar with the Oculus Rift virtual reality system, Tim, but right now iRacing over in Europe at a couple of the big gaming development conferences, they've got this sim on one of those systems right now, and it's making a lot of buzz over there about just how cool it is to go iRacing with that system. As here comes Joey Brown, the first of the leaders on pit road. Let's see what he does. 2 tires, 4 tires, 20 laps to go. If I had to guess, Tim, this could be at least 2 skins and a top off on the 12 machine of Joey Brown.
You've got to go another 20 laps. I think you take 4 here. I think you have to take 4 tires if you're the 12 at Joey Brown to gain enough positions to get back up through here. It's going to be at least right side tires. We'll have to see if he does take lefts or not. No, 2 tires down and away for the 12 of Joey Brown, as we'll have to see how that plays out.
2 tires for him and for Danny Hansen, Tim. So it looks like 2 tires is going to be the call for all these drivers. Now, here comes the 29 machine of Kevin King down pit road. Michael Conti going to be making a visit to the pit stall as his crew as well. So a lot of these guys now, I think, having their hands forced, and with the leaders taking 2 tires, Tim, I think you almost, if you're gonna hold serve, you have to take 2 tires. If you want to be a gambler, you take a splash of fuel, but I don't think you take it now. I think you have to take it as late as possible to minimize any sort of loss from being out there on old tires.
Yeah, I think you have to stay out as long as you can. Now, if you're some of these drivers, as King is down and away on 2 tires, the 05 of Ottinger actually has Schoenberg in front of him by about 4 lengths. You see the 93 of Byron Daly closing back up on your leader as Marcus Lindsay is on the pit road. The 83 of Jarrett Crawford, he's already been on the pit road as well. He is battling with the 93. That's actually a battle for position, Tony, as the 83 will move past the 93 of Byron Daly. He's been lightning quick these last few laps as Ottinger. In the 05, does he come down to pit road on this lap? No, he stays out on the racetrack. He'll complete 108 on the racetrack.
And I think Ottinger might be on that splash and go, maximize the time on the racetrack, minimize the time on pit road strategy. He might lose a little bit now out here on older tires, Tim, but I think he's going to take the gamble that either A, caution comes out and can save him from his strategy, or where he's had his cards dealt in the hand that he has, or he's going to try to minimize that time on pit road and just pass everybody, or I shouldn't say pass everybody, but try to keep everybody from passing him by doing a gas and go 4 or 5 seconds compared to a 8-9 second 2-tire stop. That's a pretty big gamble, but I think Ottinger's going, oh, hello, about caught the wall at turn 4. I think he's going to take that. So it looks like Ottinger is going to be doing the stop and go, or the gas and go, I should say, and everybody else has taken the 2 tires. So this is what we have to watch. what happens with Ottinger. We know he's not going to win this race, barring a caution flag. But further behind him, Alala, Moustakas, Johnson, Lewandowski, I think they're all in the same pit strategy. They're only separated by a few seconds, Tim, and that will end up being the race for the lead if we stay green.
Yeah, you look at Ray Alala right now, 11 seconds behind. Tom Moustakas, Michael Johnson, Tom Lewandowski back there as well. You look at the drivers that have gone the longest on their stints. You have to believe Tom Lewandowski, Ray Alala, two of those drivers that have to be right up there in the mix. I don't think Tom Lewandowski can close in 4 seconds on Ray Alala, but we've seen stranger things happen in this sim. But you have to believe Tom Lewandowski is a prime candidate for a top 5 run here this evening. Brad Davies, Rob Ackley, if they can keep it underneath them as well, they'll be right up there in the mix for a top 5 run as well. The 05 of Nick Ottinger continues to lead this thing as he will come down onto pit road here. Maybe, yes, the 05 is going to slow down the Rheem Chevrolet and will head to pit road on lap 111. It'll hand the lead over to Ray Alala in just a few laps. This should be I would say, gas and go. Tony, do you bother taking 2 tires here if you're the 05?
I think you stayed out long enough. You've got as little fuel left that with his strategy, you cannot risk any time on pit road. And yes, they'll do 2 tires, it looks like, on the Ottinger machine. So Ottinger going to try to maximize that rubber. That's going to be a pretty close call on his part, but he is going to take 2 right side skins. He'll stay on the lead lap, but now it's going to be hammered down for these laps. Oh, he spins it! Ottinger spins it coming out of the pits. In the grass, no caution yet. Ottinger's going to back it into the inside wall. Can he get the car going without bringing out the yellow flag? It appears the answer will be yes, but disaster for Nick Ottinger. Apparently forgot he had 2 used tires on the left side, Tim.
And the 05 is dog tracking the wrong way, and that might end up being the chances of his second place in the championship for Nick Ottinger in the 05 as he will try to nurse that thing back to pit road. Now the question is, Ray Alala has about 7/10 of a second on Tom Moustakas. How hard does Moustakas push it in the number 10? No, he's not going to push it at all. Scratch that, he's down on pit road for Tom Moustakas. So Ray Alala now going to have a 4-second lead on the other driver that we mentioned a little bit earlier, Tom Lewandowski. But Lewandowski, you have to believe maybe as well, Tony, is on a little bit of the defense because he's got Brad Davies on his back bumper.
He's playing defense, and Lewandowski I don't think can make it, Tim. I think he's going to be a few laps short as well. Same with Davies and Ackley. But we had to go back and check my notes on that to double check. The thing is, though, if you're Ray Alala at this point, you've got a 4-second lead, Tim. If you need to pedal, if you need to try to make some fuel in that car, you've got all the time in the world to do it. And I think Ray's doing that right now. Watching him in the corners, it doesn't seem that he's on the gas quite as hard. He's rolling out of the throttle early. He's letting the car roll through the center as much as he can. He's just picking it up slowly and trying to work his way down the back straightaway now. So Alala in fuel conservation mode. Remember, Tim, by our numbers, he's either a lap short or dead on the money. So any sort of insurance you can buy is going to be a plus if you're Ray Alala.
Keep in mind, though, Thomas Lewandowski went 2 extra laps than Ray Alala. So if Ray Alala is good, Thomas Lewandowski's good. You'd have to believe that. They're both driving Fords. They're both on the same team. They likely have the same setup in that race car. You'd have to believe if Ray Alala's good, Thomas Lewandowski's going to be good. And Brad Davies and Rob Ackley are close on that strategy as well as the 82 of Alex Warren makes his way past the 16. The 11 of Davies on the same team as your top 2 as well. You'd have to believe that those 2, if they're good, Davies, I believe, pitted the same lap that Ray Alala did. So you'd have to believe that if those 2 are good, Thomas Lewandowski's good. Rob Ackley is on the same strategy as well. He'll be close. But I think if there's anybody in this field that it might have a little more insurance of those guys that are gambling, I believe Thomas Lewandowski might be the first in line there. We'll have to see. If Alala runs out of fuel 2 laps before the end of the race, you'd have to believe everybody that is on that same strategy is not going to make it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Ray Alala pitted at the end of lap 82, going into lap number 83. The same lap that Brad Davies pitted, Tim. And that, again, it's very, very close. If you look at Thomas Lewandowski, He pitted on lap 83 going into lap 84. 1 lap difference, but that 1 lap can spell the difference between success and victory and complete heartbreak tonight.
And Lewandowski right now getting a little bit of a sniff of a draft from the core pipe 82 of Alex Warren. Warren right now in 28th, 1 lap down. Looking down your top 10 right now, Ray Alfala, Tom Lewandowski, Brad Davies, Rob Ackley, Peter Bennett. And then you got Stephen Gilbert, Landon Harrison, Brandon Bowie, Joey Brown, and Brian Blackford. Your top 10. I believe Marcus Lindsay might be the first driver that came down pit road of these top 12 or so. Joey Brown as well would be there. Oh, check that. Joey Brown's in 9th right now. So Joey Brown would be, if everybody in front of him runs out on that same strategy, Brown would have a lead of about 4 seconds.
Yeah, exactly, and we do know that some of these guys in front of them are going to have to pit. I think Bowie's going to have to come down pit road. I think Gilbert and Bennett and Ackley are going to have to come down pit road. But again, it's going to be close, and a lot of these guys might have been saving fuel, Tim, over the entire course of this stint, and because they're at the back of the running order, we didn't pay any attention to that. So they might also be able to make it right now. The good news, if you're a Joey Brown or a Marcus Lindsay or a Jared Crawford, you've come down pit road, you've got fuel, you're good to go, you're wide open trying to go by these guys. So again, all these different strategies coming into play now with 6 laps to go as Alfala crosses the line, puts lap 119 on the top of the board.
You see the 5, 20, and 29 right now. That's a battle for 16, 17, and 18. But if a lot of these drivers run out of fuel in front of them, then you're likely going to see this probably be maybe the battle for 5th or so, or maybe a little bit closer up to the front of the field as Conti will take the spot over Danny Hansen, but the 29 of Kevin King pressuring him to the inside. Goes the 29 on the 20, and Danny Hansen might let him have it here. The 93 of Byron Daly is also a part of this mix as well. 20 crossover to the inside of the 29 of Kevin King down the back straightaway, and the 29 is not going to let the 20 car get there. Going to let him have the line into corner number 3 once again side by side, and they are going to swap positions. Byron Daly wants a piece of this as well. Will come up this time by for them. 5 laps to go.
Remember, Daly is on a little bit older tires because he did short pit, Tim. So he doesn't have quite the grip these guys do because they all took 2 tires on their stop, and of course they were out a little bit longer as well on theirs, or excuse me, not out longer, but they've got a little bit less time on the right side, a little bit more on the lefts, but nonetheless I think Daly might be a small disadvantage in that group, but he's hanging right with them again as they work down the back straightaway, and as you said, depending how it all works out, that could be a battle for 4th, 5th, or something in the top 10. Casey Malone losing a spot right now. Looks like he trying to save fuel in that number 92 machine. Also out there trying to save fuel, it appears, is the 34 of Matt Busa. So a lot of guys right now, they know where they're at. Their bed is made. They're having to lie in it right now, and a few of them are having some problems getting comfortable.
Crew Chief Harrison Weidel, it's on the number 2 car of Ray Alfala, says that they believe that car is good on fuel. They believe Lewandowski and Davies' teammates also good on fuel. The crew chief for the number 89 of Landon Harrison also believes that they are good on fuel. They are, quote-unquote, good to go. So they believe that they're good.
Plans of mice and men, Tim.
Yeah, that they right now it seems like they know a little bit more than we do right now. They are holding their cards close to their chest, but they believe that they are good on the fuel. And right now, as you mentioned, Ray Alfala's got a 4.3 second lead. They'll come by this time by and have 2 laps to go on the 2 car of Alfala.
4 miles to settle it. And in front of him, looks like Ray Alfala has Kevin Burris running out of fuel. That are just getting out of the way of the number 2 machine. But Burris was very slow there on the apron. It looks like he'll pick up the throttle again. So not out of fuel, just giving plenty of room to Ray Alfala as Kevin Burris. But you know Ray Alfala had to think about it for just a second there. Anytime he comes up on a car that's slowing with his current situation, you know he's got to be hearing voices in his head. Now with less than 3 miles to go.
This time by Ray Alfala, we'll see the white silk. 1 lap to go for car number 2 of Ray Alfala as he gambled on the fuel, it looks like, unless something happens in the next mile and 8 tenths or so, it's going to pay off for your champion, Ray Alfala. He came in with that drop with a 25-point advantage on the rest of the field. He's got a 4-second lead the last time by, and he works into corner number 3. And Ray Alfala will tack on to the point lead here at a critical stage in this 2013 season. Ray Alfala will break the bad luck curse at Michigan, and he will win round number 13 of the NASCAR iRacing.com Series World Championship. Alfala to victory lane. Thomas Lewandowski crosses in second. Davies is good in third. Peter Bennett coming up at a corner number 4. He will come across the line in fourth. And look at this, Rob Ackley in position at number 5. Great run for the 22 Chevrolet Impala. Joey Brown in 6th. Another great run for Landon Harrison in 7th. Stephen Gilbert in 8th. Brandon Bowie 9th. And Brian Blackford in 10th. There's a lot of drivers there, Tony, that we don't usually mention their names that had great runs tonight.
All because of pit strategy, Tim. And you knew when we had those opening cautions that it was going to play into the outcome of the race. We just didn't know how. You look at Rob Ackley. He made it 44 laps on that final tank of fuel to come home in the top 5. And a lot of people now going to be reassessing pit strategy as we go forward, particularly to Atlanta for the next race, another event that, in theory, can play out to be a fuel mileage contest and a pit strategy type of race. Oh, boy. What a run by some of those guys up front. And you know there's a lot of people further back in the running order kicking themselves right now because they just gave up a boatload of points to Ray Alfala.
Ray will park it in victory lane, and we will talk to him in just a few moments' time, along with the rest of your top 5. The post-race show here on PSR TV, iRacing Live, and the Motor Racing Network coming up from Michigan in just a few moments' time. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Fans, it's time for those most famous words in motorsports. Drivers, start your engines!
front. He comes up at a corner number 4 in the checkered flag. He wins his first NASCAR iRacing. Welcome back to the NASCAR iRacing.com Series World Championship round number 13 at the Michigan International Speedway. And it came down to fuel mileage at the end, and Ray Alfalla is your winner. Thomas Lewandowski comes home in second, Brad Davies in third, Peter Bennett, and Rob Ackley with his first top 5 of the season. Going to come home in position number 5. Joey Brown, Landon Harrison, Stephen Gilbert, Brandon Bowie, Brian Blackford. The completion of your top 10. We're going to go down trackside to Victory Lane with Tony Stevens and Ray Alfalla.
Thank you, Tim. Down here with the man that everybody thought was crazy at the outset of this race, but Ray Alfalla, looks like you play poker very, very well, my friend. Was that the strategy to stick to your guns and make it a 2-stop race?
Yeah, figures something like this happens at my worst track. We were off on our pit strategy was different from everybody else. Us and like 10 or 12 other cars, and yellow came out. Yellows kept coming out, and when the last one came out with like 90 to go, we said, well, it's going to be like 86 to go on the restart, and we can pretty much go 43 laps each run without saving much. So, it seemed like a no-brainer at the time. We were surprised that, we pitted, and only like 10 people followed us. So, we restarted back there, but we knew if it went green, we'd be all set, and indeed it went, and really there wasn't even much saving going on. It was just, taking it easy in the turns and smooth sailing all the way.
Ray, were you worried at all when you got back there after you made that stop and you're back somewhere in 20-something spot? Yes, you weren't really racing the guys around you because you knew your strategy from the sound of it, but did it worry you at all knowing that all of those early cautions happened right where you were going to be restarting the race?
Yeah, a little bit, but you can always. I feel like you're always in control of your own destiny unless something real freaky happens, like right next to you or right in front of you where you can't avoid it. Or if it was like last year with me where lightning struck next to my house and I couldn't even run this race. So, we kind of plateaued around the 11th, and which was a little disappointing. I thought we had a better car. But, going into this race, I knew this was probably my worst track, which is why this is ironic. And once I got to about 11th and couldn't go anywhere, I said, well, I'm just going to take it easy from here and see if we can just make it on one more stop. And, it went green all the way, so it worked out.
Worked out, and going into the next race now in Atlanta, you've got a much bigger point lead going into that event as we come into the home stretch. Does that give you any sort of confidence, any sort of ability to relax, for that matter, going into those final few events?
Well, I feel like the worst track is out of the way. Michigan is by far my worst track. I don't really know why. And it's also been the track where I've had the worst amount of luck. I haven't finished the race here since, tonight, and the last race I finished here was in 2010. So I guess it's a good way for the track to make it up for me to win on a fuel mileage race.
And I know, Ray, there's a lot of people that made it possible for you. A few of them finished right behind you in the running order, but who all does make it happen with the 2 group?
Yeah, I got to thank ProKit Consulting with the black scheme this race. Sort of like a throwback to just last year, but thanks JD Laird for making that paint scheme. iRacing Brazil, Gary Mercer Trucking, Disabled Racers, the Eye Holder, Tim's Corner, Hick and Chicks. I got to thank the Jew Chief, Here's Some Waddlets, everybody at the Drill Alan J Show, and I got to give credit to Tom Lewandowski for the strategy call. I was actually doubting on whether to pit or not because I wanted to stay up front, but he said no, let's bring it on in. So I listened to what he said, and here we are in Victory Lane.
Well, congratulations, Ray, on a win at, admittedly, your own worst racetrack, and best of luck now in the next few races heading towards possibly a 3rd consecutive championship.
Thank you. See you guys in 2 weeks at Atlanta.
That's Ray Alfalla, winner here tonight at Michigan, fuel mileage king at least as far as this particular week goes. Tim Terry, I think you made your way over to his teammate, the guy who ended up finishing second after starting all the way back in 30th, Thomas Lewandowski.
And the guy he credits that strategy to, Tom Lewandowski, coming home in second. But first, let's talk about that strategy. How did you guys plan that out to get to the end on that one stop in that green flag run?
Well, when that caution came out, the last one, I was looking and me and Ray were talking, and I told him, well, if we pit now, if it goes green, we can make it on one stop. If we save a little fuel. So we just decided to do that because Michigan always tends to have long green flag runs at some point in the race, and luckily for us, we were right and ended up 1, 2, 3.
How big was that in the first 50 laps or so of the race to really endure that and try to dodge everything that was happening there?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I started, I think, in 30th place, and at first it was just survival for me. I was just kind of, picking my spots, and I knew I had a pretty good car, and ended up working out.
Looking at the points, I know the top 20 is that huge goal. You come into this race in 9th in the standings. You got a couple of guys in front of you that didn't have great runs. It looks like you're going to pick up on those drivers. What are your goals in these final few races in points? Is top 5 a realistic shot if these guys in front of you can have a little bit of bad luck and stumble a little bit?
Definitely it is. 5 races ago, I was just hoping to end up top 20, but as of late, I've been putting together some good finishes, and I think top 5 is a very realistic goal if I can keep this up.
I know you guys work hard each week. How much work goes into Atlanta coming up in 2 weeks, and what do we expect there? Can we see possibly another fuel mileage race?
I don't know about Atlanta so much. I have a funny feeling it might be a wreck fest there, but a lot of people might be sitting out too after this race, so we'll just have to wait and see. I
know you have a lot of teammates that help, and I know you're looking to fill some quarter panels on that blank race car. Who makes it happen for you and give us a pitch to fill them?
All my teammates over at Drill Isle and all the J-Show guys, we were running around like crazy. Not running, but trying to get the car settled before the race because we were junk an hour before the race. But we all pulled together, came up with something decent about 15 minutes before the race. Big thanks to Jason Loafing, Danny Hansen, Michael Conti, Ray, Brad. All those guys helped get this car together before the race.
And there's your second place driver this evening, Tom Lewandowski. And as Ray Alfala said, Tony, the mastermind behind all this strategy that went on for the Drill Isle team. And speaking of the Drill Isle team, I believe you've caught up with third place finisher Brad Davies.
Certainly have. And Brad, we've already asked the question to 2 of your teammates, and I'm sure your answers can be very similar, but when did you guys come up with that strategy? Was it an on-the-fly deal? Was it one of those things if you had considered it in practice but never really tested it? Or was this absolutely according to the book of how you guys came into the night?
Well, I think we started thinking about it a little bit before that very last caution. We were kind of like doing the whole, what if a caution comes out with 90 to go, et cetera, et cetera. And we were like, what are the chances of that happening? But sure enough, with about 90 to go, that caution come out. We knew we could go about 42 laps on fuel, just running hard every lap. And we figured we could save another lap or a lap and a half and stretch it to 43 or 43 and a half if we had to. So with about 90 to go, we had that caution, and that we figured we were going to go back to green with 86 to go. And we were like, man, that's about as far as we can stretch it, so we might as well give it a shot. We didn't think it would go green the whole way because the race at that point had so many cautions up to that point. But sure enough, it went green the whole way and kind of worked right into our favor.
Certainly did work into your favor. And you had a couple of close calls throughout the night, Brad, that could have ended your night a little early. How'd you end up managing to get through those and still persevere to get back to a third spot?
Yeah, I was kind of lucky there a couple times because I was following Ray, for a few laps after that final caution that we had up to the field, and we got a car in between us, and I was following him, and he had to check up for some reason, and I kind of run into the back of him a little bit, and then the same exact thing happened again a couple laps later with a couple other cars. They checked up in front of me, and I kind of run into the back of somebody. Not hard, not enough to wreck him or anything, but just one of them deals where I couldn't react quick enough, and I wound up getting a little bit of damage from it because sure enough, a few laps later, I started overheating, when following too close to another car, and I could tell the car was a little bit tighter, and I was losing a little bit of straightaway speed towards the end of the straightaways, and I thought it was going to be, pretty hard to manage for the rest of the race, especially if it went green. But once the field got spread out, I was okay. I could stick the nose out a little bit and keep it cool. It would blink every once in a while towards the end of the straightaway, but thankfully, we didn't have any more cautions, and the field got strung out, and I was able to keep some air in the radiator.
Sometimes it's those little victories that matter at a race like this. Closer to the end of the race, we had the 05 machine of Nick Ottinger have an issue coming out of the pits on his stop with about 15 to go. I'm sure you were aware of it. Did it throw any sort of doubts in your head about the strategy you had chosen and how it was going to play out? And for that matter, how much praying were you doing in those 15 or 20 seconds of the time he spun off to where he got going again?
Well, to be honest, I can't really answer that question because I wasn't aware of it. I heard some chatter on TeamSpeak about something, but I was too focused on saving fuel at that point and focusing on my line that I wasn't really paying attention. I do know that there was an issue with somebody, but I didn't know what had happened and who it happened to, so can't really answer that question for you.
Well, you did enough by telling us that you didn't care. You were worried about one thing, and that was looking out the windshield, Brad. I know a lot of people make it happen for you, and who did make it happen on the number 11 machine here this week?
Yeah, I got to thank Ray and Tom. They helped me out with the setup quite a bit this week because I didn't get a chance to get a lot of practice in. But I did. I was able to do a little testing on Thursday and put a setup together, and was able to move over a few things that I had learned from that over to the setup that Tom had helped me out with. So big thanks to him and Ray for getting me up to speed tonight.
Well, Brad Dayton comes home finishing in the third spot here tonight, Tim. What an absolute run for that group. And for that matter, the guy you are standing by with, who started all the way back in 26th spot, 22 positions later, he finishes in fourth, and that's Peter Bennett. Tim?
And it ends up being a good point night as well that could put him a little bit closer to that top 5 in the standings when we're done here this evening. Peter Bennett, talk about your run up to position number 4 this evening at Michigan.
I was really unsure how the race was going to pan out, especially in the beginning with a bunch of cautions, but I know one of my teammates, Brandon Cattell, asked me about lap 50 or so when we'd be able to make it on one stop, and I made a rough estimate, and we decided to pit on that caution, and we stretched it on one stop, and we made it all the way.
Looking at this season, you continue to reel off some great finishes. This is your third top 5 finish in 13 races this season. Coming in as a rookie to this season, you have to think, so far so good for this number 69 team, especially at a racetrack like Michigan, where coming in with the fuel mileage and everything kind of unpredictable after the first 50 laps or so.
Absolutely. I definitely didn't expect to be doing this well. I came into the season hoping for 2 top 5s. I got that last week at New Hampshire, now this week at Michigan. I'm just really happy with what I've done, and I don't try to do anything special, and I think that's the key. I'm really patient. I don't stick my nose in anywhere, and I just try to finish each race, and it's been working out for me.
I asked Tom Lewandowski as well, final few races of the season, top 5 has to be a goal, but what else is in the cards for Peter Bennett? Where do you see yourself in these next few races to close off this season?
Now that we're past halfway through, I can kind of narrow down what my goals are for point standings, and that's to stay inside the top 10. Ideally, I'd like a top 5 finish. That's the biggest goal I have, but to stay in the top 10, I think that'd be a real success for me on the season. And I guess maybe one more top 5 if I have it in me. I don't know if I have a win in me yet, unless we get some even crazier fuel strategy. I thought I might have had it, and I didn't realize that Ray was all the way up there. And then Brad and Tom, they were just a little bit faster than me saving fuel. They did a great job. But I want to just stay consistent and just get top 10s.
We head to Atlanta next week or 2 weeks' time. We've already run the cookie cutters on previous builds, Texas, Charlotte. How much can Atlanta help you to, let's say, to move into maybe a Chicago, a Kansas, or maybe a Homestead to close off this season?
I've always been subpar at cookie cutters, but however, ever since I upgraded my graphics card 2 weeks ago for the New Hampshire race, I've had 2 top 5, so I don't really know what to expect going forward now. I feel more comfortable racing now that I'm getting much better frames per second. The visuals look great. I guess it's going to be a real wild card for me because I don't really know what to expect going into these races.
I know you got some sponsors on this race car and a dedicated crew that helps you out. You mentioned your teammate Brandon Cattell. Who else makes it happen for you, and who's on the race car for sponsors?
Brandon Cattell. Lee Herron did most of the setup work this week, and he also made his first start in this series, so congratulations to him. Hammer Down Motorsports is the team I run with, and DylanCC.com is a sponsor, and he also helped spot me today, too.
And that's Peter Bennett coming home with a very respectable 4th place finish. And Tony, I don't think that's the last top 5 for Peter Bennett this season. Continues to reel off these great finishes. And speaking about a guy who's reeled off a great finish here this evening, you've caught up with car number 22, Rob Ackley.
Certainly have, Tim. He has got, well, pretty much his first top 5 of the season here tonight at the Michigan International Speedway. Very, very solid run, Rob. And how in the world did you end up in the 5th spot? I'm sure there was you appeared on our radar from nowhere. I'm sure there's got to be a good story behind this one.
Oh, yeah, I'm not really sure how I ended up there, to be honest with you. With all the cautions early on, you're not sure what type of race you're going to have, and just turned out the fuel strategy worked out perfect for me, I guess.
Worked out perfect for you. Probably the understatement of the night. Did you have any worries about that fuel strategy? When did it finally, or first I should say, when did it first enter your brain that this might be a fuel strategy race and I might want to try to figure out how to make it work to my advantage?
I didn't really start trying to make it, honestly, until that last run. It looked like I was a couple laps short, but about 10 laps into that run I decided to try to make it, and luckily it worked out fine, I guess.
Worked out good. Now, I know you've got a lot of time here at Michigan in a lot of these A-class type races weekly here in iRacing. Of course, the NASCAR IRacing.com series, just the regular series anybody can run when they sign up for iRacing. Did any of that help influence this race here tonight and this run you had, or was this pretty much completely different being that you're racing the cream of the crop?
Well, I ran 2 races earlier in the week, just gotta get a feel for the setup and the track and that kind of stuff, but the competition in this series is so tough, you're never really sure what to expect.
Well, in your case, you expected, well, I shouldn't say you expected a 5th place finish, but you got a 5th place finish, and now you kind of know what to expect when you come to a place like Michigan. Looking forward to Atlanta next week. Is there anything from this race you can take and maybe apply and use towards that race in Atlanta in a couple of weeks?
Probably not from this track, since they're pretty different, but I know the guys that help me out are going to put a good setup underneath us.
And who are the people that help you out, Rob, on the 22 car?
I got to thank all the guys at Nexus and Gale Force Racing. Put in a lot of time on the setup this week, and luckily I just get to drive it.
Well, Rob Ackley finishes in the 5th spot here tonight. First top 5 finish of the season, and Tim, I think that's something that he needed, a shot in his arm, and for that matter, I think a couple of these other guys that had solid top 10 runs, certainly good for them as well.
Yeah, you look at a guy like Landon Harrison, who finished up in the top 10. Stephen Gilbert, Brandon Bowie, Brian Blackford as well. There's a lot of stiff competition up there that we're not used to calling their name in the top 10, but they're there at the end of this race. Final thoughts from Michigan here, Tony. First 50 laps were a little rough, but a fantastic second half of this race, and now we head into 2 weeks' time at the Atlanta Motor Speedway.
2 weeks, it's going to be fun. I'm not going to be able to be with you, Tim. I'm going to be in the middle of Iowa for the IMCA Speedway Motors Super Nationals on xsan.tv. Got to get our promo in there, xsan.tv. 60, 70 plus hours of live racing coverage. You can put them on side by side next Tuesday night, and you can have a ball if you want to watch some spectacular racing from out in Iowa. Make sure you tune us in. But I wish I could be there for Atlanta. It's another racetrack that has a lot of room and a lot of places to go, and it could theoretically play into a fuel mileage or pit strategy race as well. It's going to be fun to see how it all unfolds, but this one was entertaining to watch. Yes, the first 35 or 40 laps were, quite frankly, pretty ridiculous, but after that, it was just the precursor to what played out, all the different pit strategies, all the different sequences each driver was on, and to see how they ended up working out for them at the end of the race was absolutely amazing. We had the drama of not knowing whether Alala could make it or anybody can make it. Those guys that pitted at what we thought was the edge of the window, and we've heard it kind of was the edge of the window, but they were able to make it to the end. And a lot of these guys having good finishes because they played the pit strategy right. Peter Bennett, Rob Ackley, guys like that. Stephen Gilbert in 8th up from the Pro Division. Brandon Bowie in that boat as well. Even Brian Blackford had a top 10 finish tonight, so certainly good run for him. And it's always good to see those things happen, and I like it when you have an unpredictable race, a fun race, and an interesting race, to where you don't know what's going to happen until the checkered flag falls. Our friend Parker Klickerman had it right on Twitter a little bit earlier, said absolutely amazing, great race, and even his guy, Byron Daly, had a pretty solid run. Didn't quite work out the way he wanted it to, finishing 17th, but again, that's why we love racing like this, Tim. There were so many things that could happen. There were so many storylines, and Ray Alfala ended up being the top storyline of the entire race when everything worked out according to his plan.
And he's going to edge out a little further in that championship and get himself closer to an unprecedented 3 championships in this NASCAR iRacing.com Series World Championship. As we mentioned, 2 weeks' time, we go to the Atlanta Motor Speedway, and we've got 5 races left in this schedule. Going to be exciting to head to Chicagoland, Kansas, Dover, and Homestead to close off this 2013 campaign. If you're looking for information on this series, be sure to head to the microsite for the NASCAR iRacing.com Series World Championship at wcs.iracing.com. Also, all the information for the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series. That's wcs.iracing.com to get all your information from the World Championship Series, whether it is the oval side that you saw this evening on PSR TV or the road side for the World Championship Series here on iRacing. Once again, iRacing.com, place to go to get signed up. If you are not a member, you should be a member by the end of the evening. Fantastic racing action over here on iRacing.com. That's going to do it for us here this evening on PSR TV, the Motor Racing Network, and iRacing Live. So for the entire crew, Ian Bushing, Zach Stanko, Matt Racing Kid Thomas, Nim Cross, who's behind the scenes somewhere here. We have Chuck Johnson, Joe Cortez, who couldn't be here this evening. My name is Tim Terry, Tony Stevens too. My name is Tim Terry, saying we'll see you in 2 weeks' time when we say let's go racing from the Atlanta Motor Speedway. Keep the hammer down, and we'll see you at the track.